Cool Figure TV. Revolutionary salute. Revolutionary salute. Like, share, subscribe. Welcome to the House of Revolution. You know I'm your humble host, the Yao Mean of Revolution in this Black History Month, and we continue with the Black History, Civil Rights, Boule, Selats, the Greek freak, the divine nine. Let's get into it.
If you want to be exclusive, you got to exclude people.
So this year in 2025 of Black History Month, it is time that truth is brought to the light and the enemy is exposed. There is history in the Black community that many are just not aware of, and yet the whole community is influenced by these people. There is a difficult subject that needs to be spoken about while I'm still able to. For the most part, if you watch my videos or are slightly aware of the lies to this world that we're born into, then secret societies are not a big shocker to you. And if you understand that, you know that we can mostly correlate a majority of agendas going on in this world with the different secret societies. Some are very well known and heard of, like the Freemasons or Skull and Bones, though we don't know a great deal about them besides what they allow others to know or what insiders have revealed and exposed. But there are many others, some that are high up in the food chain or hierarchy of dominance, that are not even known by the majority. Most people have never even heard of them, though they have yielded a great deal of influence. And this topic that I'm about to discuss will discuss one of the least known societies. And though in the grand hierarchy of this pyramid, they are not very high in importance in this world, but in the Black community in America, they are extremely high in the pyramid. And most people have never even heard of them. They are the gatekeepers of the Black community. And if you do not understand them, you will have so many false beliefs and attitudes of Black America, our struggle, civil rights, and many other subjects that will not be corrected if they are not understood. Now, this is not a racial issue. Regardless of your race, you must understand this group because they have been used secretly against the population. If you were one that was influenced by the civil rights agenda, you were directly influenced by this organization. Yes, their spirit influence and their target market, it was and is the Black community in America, possibly around the world, though I would admit that my research hasn't taken me that far yet. But if you're paying attention to the agendas being carried out today, you will be able to see that this is an understanding that everyone should have. Whoever you are, you have to understand this group. You must understand the Black Boule. Let's begin. Okay, so I've desired to bring this topic back out for a while now. But in bringing these topics out, just like anything, it's important to have a strong foundation first in other topics. Like, you can't talk about the Boule without understanding Prince Hall Freemasonry, which is why I made that video first. And then you really can't understand the Divine Nine without understanding Prince Hall Freemasonry and the Boule. This information must be understood and peeled back in layers. So in the way that I teach, information comes out in a specific order in order that confusion can be limited. So if you have not watched the one about Prince Hall Freemasonry, please watch that one first, because if you don't watch that, there may be information you are missing that doesn't completely allow you to connect all the dots that are about to be presented in this video. Now, before I get into the breakdown of what the Black Boule is, we need to go back in time. Let's go back to the times of slavery. During the times of slavery, we had plantations. This was large farms in the colonies of America that used the enforced labor of slaves to harvest crops like cotton, rice, indigo, sugar, tobacco, and other farm produce for trade and export around the world. This trade and export was how America was built. On this plantation, we had two different classes or groups of people. We had the masters and the slaves. There was no crossing between these classes. A master never became a slave, and a slave never became a master. Well, that's not entirely true. Eventually, there were slaves that became slave owners, but I don't want to get off point. I'm not going to talk much about the masters, but more about the slaves. To keep the slaves in line and know exactly what the slaves were thinking or plotting, the masters, they needed help. They needed allies within the slaves. So in the slave class, there was two other classes that were created. There were the regular slaves and then the house slaves. The house Negroes, which really is known by another word that I will not use. The house slaves were taken in the house, given better food and accommodations. They were treated better and were more aligned with the slave masters than they were with their own people. They were used by the slave masters to keep the slaves in line. The slave masters might not have been able to keep the slaves in line without the house slaves. It even became a goal for some of the slaves to be able to come inside and become house slaves themselves. Now, on top of that, the slave masters would also have babies with the house slaves. Those children would never be equal, but they were not the bottom class slaves that had nothing and had to work outside eating the scraps. I think you get the picture. And I think for the most part, everyone should understand what the house slaves were. Now, here's the question I want you to think about. After slavery, and after they reprogrammed the slaves to believe that they were free, do you think that the position of house slave went away? Do you think that slave masters, those that were running and building this country, do you think that they did away with this house slave position that allowed them to keep tabs and control of the Negro community by just controlling a small few of them? The answer should be no. But here's the problem. Whether you ever thought about that question or not, you probably have not been exposed to the how. You might just call out a few names that you've seen on television that were obviously cooning and say that's what a modern house slave is. But you probably still have not been fully exposed to the real answer. And that's what we're going to talk about. Here's the irony, though, in obvious reprogramming of today. During the times of slavery, though there were a few slaves that wanted to become house slaves, the majority of the slaves, they despised the house slaves. They did not trust them or like them. Fast forward to our current modern times. Today, we praise the house slaves, and they are now our heroes. It's because we have been reprogrammed and reconditioned to love and accept our chains. And our goals are now to get in the house instead of breaking free. Now, if you watched the video that broke down Prince Hall Freemasonry, you already have a good understanding of how the separation began and was started. But it did not stop at Prince Hall Freemasonry. Within the ranks of the Masons were an educated bourgeois class of black men that looked at themselves as elite compared to the rest of the other Masons. They wanted to be separated and distinguished from all the other Masons. And the ruling class of America, the elite families that are still the unseen hand of this world, they needed a source of recruitable Negroes to assist them with their plan to assimilate the Negroes into this new world that they were building. So there was a new subsection of the underground world of Negroes that was made to be the gatekeepers of Black America. On their website, they say this about themselves. Sigma Pi Phi fraternity is also known as the Boule, which in ancient Greece was a council of chiefs. The meaning of the words Sigma Pi Phi, the titles given to its members and their wives, its officers, and the names of its local units are derived from Greek history and tradition as well. In its early years, Sigma Pi Phi could be viewed as a secret organization that consciously avoided publicity. It was not until 1982 that the fraternity adopted a policy of limited and selective publicity. Although no longer secret, today it can be described as a fraternity that exists with little fanfare and one that actively seeks to improve the lives of the citizens in the communities in which members are associated through its social action and public policy programs and initiatives. From its founding in 1904 with 6 members in the city of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Sigma Pi Phi fraternity has deliberately grown slowly, as the emphasis has always been on quality and not quantity. Yet, it currently has nearly 5,000 active members who are affiliated with 134 member Boules in cities across the breadth of this nation and in Nassau, the Bahamas, and London, the United Kingdom. It has welcomed and continues to welcome into its fraternal bond some of the most distinguished men in the world. Its members have included such men as W.E.B. Du Bois, Carter G. Woodson, Martin Luther King Jr., Benjamin E. Mays, Ralph J. Bunche, James Weldon Johnson, Charles R. Drew, Daniel Hale Williams, Percy L. Julian, Charles H. Wesley, Oliver W. Hill, Paul R. Williams, John Hope Franklin, A. Leon Higginbotham, Ulysses K., Arna Bontemps, Arthur Ashe, David H. Blackwell, Robert C. Weaver, Ronald H. Brown, and the list goes on and on. Its past as well as its present members have been and are leaders in the struggle for civil rights, social justice, economic and educational equality, and in the implementation of public policy and healthcare initiatives that aid our underserved communities. Okay, now they have apparently taken it off their website, but in Boule member Charles Wesley's book, History of Sigma Pi Phi, a book I will be quoting from often in this video, when speaking about the founder Henry Minton, who I will speak on more briefly as well, Wesley writes this about Minton. His dream and ambition were to organize a Greek letter fraternity and to have its members not to be selected on the basis of brains alone, but in addition to congeniality, culture, and good fellowship, that they should have behind them a record of accomplishment, not merely be men of promise and good education. In summary, Minton wanted to create an organization which would partake, in his own words, of the tenets of Skull and Bones at Yale and Phi Beta Kappa. Now, you can see now in the age of information why they would want that removed from their website. If you remember Skull and Bones from George Bush, where both him and John Kerry were in the same secret society, but could not tell us anything about it.
You were both in Skull and Bones, the secret society.
It's so secret we can't talk about it.
What does that mean for America? The conspiracy theorists are going to go
I'm
wild.
sure they are. I don't know. I haven't seen the web.
Number 322.
First of all, he's not the nominee, and look, I look
Are
forward.
you prepared to lose?
No, I'm not going to lose.
You both were members of Skull and Bones, a secret society at Yale. What does that tell us? Not much, because it's a secret.
Yeah. Wikipedia says this about the secret society. Skull and Bones, also known as the Order 322, or the Brotherhood of Death, is an undergraduate senior secret student society at Yale University in New Haven, Connecticut. It is one of the big three societies at Yale, the other two being Scroll and Key and Wolf's Head Society. Yeah. Now, we don't need to know much more, but understanding the underworkings of this world, it says a lot that the Boule wanted to create an organization that partakes in the tenets of the Brotherhood of Death. Now, we also know that Phi Beta Kappa, who he also wanted to mirror his organization after, this is a Masonic organization, and I will revisit that info as I deal with the Divine Nine. But let's continue to focus on the Boule. You see, everyone has heard of the Alphas, the Kappas, the Omegas, the Sigmas, the Deltas, AKAs, etc., especially if you went to an HBCU like I did. But one thing that is not spoken of is the first Black Greek letter fraternity. Across America's colleges, when at the time you can say that they were predominantly white institutions of higher learning, these institutions had their Greek college fraternal organizations in much earlier periods. The organizations like Phi Beta Kappa were very early started in the higher learning institutions of America. But in the Black community, these organizations, these Greek letter organizations, were not undertaken until after the 1900s. Now, if you hear people speak of their fraternities, they love to talk about the history and how old it was. But the one thing that's not spoken on is if these people were just freed only 40 years before their organization was created, where did they get this knowledge of Greek letter fraternities from? It's obviously not original and was emulated from organizations that came before them. Organizations actually held membership of some of the same exact people that once enslaved them. Where do you think your Greek fraternity influence comes from? But we can talk about that later. Let's talk some more history. Bear with me, please. Sigma Pi Phi was the first Black Greek letter fraternity before all the more widely known Divine Nine fraternities in the Black community was created. Now, the Black man at this time was on the rise, due mainly to the rise of Prince Hall Freemasonry, which was discussed in the previous video. During the beginning of the 20th century, in the early 1900s, there were established Negro professionals. By the beginning of the year 1900, the total number of Negro college graduates had been increased to 7,488. The majority of this group had come from Southern colleges, although there was an important minority who had graduated from Northern colleges. After these men who held bachelor's degrees, the number of graduate and professional degrees was relatively much smaller. The census of 1900 showed that the Negro population was steadily building an improved economic, educational, and social status. One of the areas that this improved status was improving was in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. If you remember in the last video, I told you to remember this city. This was the city that saw the second or third Prince Hall Masonic Lodge created in the country. Anyways, the city of Philadelphia ranked high in the list of those giving work opportunities to the Negro population. Remember, Pennsylvania was a northern state, and the proportion of free Blacks in Philadelphia before the Civil War was greater than in any other city in the North. In 1900, there was in a single ward of Philadelphia 7 teachers, 5 lawyers, 6 physicians, 22 clergymen, and 3 dentists. This is not normal for the Black community. There were 3 major socioeconomic Negro groups in Philly. The first was the small group of professional persons who were the physicians, the dentists, lawyers, teachers, pastors, executives of business enterprises. A second group included the skilled and semi-skilled industrial workers and a large number of domestic servants. And the third group was the vast majority, and they comprised of the class that was considered unskilled laborers who were in poverty and low-income living in the congested areas of the city, what we call ghettos. Here's an important point that Wesley notes in his book. The lives of most of the 2 latter groups revolved around the church, the lodge, and the beneficial society. He says, during the last decade of the 19th century, there were 19 lodges of Masons, 6 chapters of the Eastern Star, 5 commanderies, 3 of the Scottish Rite, and 1 drill corps. There were lodges of the Knights of Pythias, Oddfellows, Galilean fishermen, and other important organizations based upon fraternal ties. Churches, they had been organized and have flourishing memberships and were influencing the people in the development of self-respect and self-support, same way they do right now. The churches and lodges had property valued at over $1 million at that time. If you remember from the last video, Prince Hall Freemason Richard Allen created the AME Church in Philadelphia. So I gave you all that information so you can understand what the times were like. It's important to understand this. Henry M. Minton, founder of Sigma Pi Phi, was educated and a professional. He had the first drugstore operated by Negroes in Philadelphia. He later became a doctor, graduating from Jefferson Medical College. There were Greek letter fraternities in the institutions which he had attended, but Negroes were excluded from their membership. At that time, no Greek letter fraternity had been organized by Negroes. Minton's ambition drove him to take leadership in the creation of a fraternity among men of like ideals and attributes, and to build an affiliation of selected college men who had made achievements in their careers and their community. And this is when Sigma Pi Phi was created. Now, the other Black Greek organizations, the Divine Nine, they were created shortly after. They were catered to mostly undergrads, those obtaining bachelor's degrees. But Sigma Pi Phi, the oldest of all the Greek organizations, it catered to the men in their post-college years. This fraternity was planned for men who were graduates of college and were engaged in professional activities in their communities, meaning you wouldn't be able to join this organization while you were in college. You need to establish yourself and show that you are worthy to be a part of their organization. In Minton's words, there were many men in the community of good training, intelligence, and culture and congeniality who were not intimately equated with one another. For the good of themselves and the community, they should be gathered together in some kind of organization. Put very simply, these men, they served themselves. They were doing their thing in the community, and they wanted to bring them all together so that they could all work together for a common goal. It's a common idea in the Black community that many of us are like crabs in a barrel. No one can rise because we're always pulling each other down. These men should be credited with the creation of that condition in our community. But I digress. The historic birth of Sigma Pi Phi is May 15th, 1904. This is their Founders Day. It was at this time the concept of Boule was formed. Boule, also known as the Council of the Chiefs, the leading noblemen, or the heads of families. The Boule of Homeric times was a body of princes who were advisory to the king. This goes back to the Greeks, just like Christianity does. You see, a question we should ask ourselves is, who were they councils and advisors to? Who were these Boule's councils to? History will show and prove that they were the advisors of dealing with and keeping the Black community in check. Again, they were the house slaves. Another word used more generally than Boule was the word archon. They say this designation was a title given to the highest magistrate in Athens and many ancient Greek states. But in a simple search, like in the Britannica, you can see that in Gnosticism, archons are actually more likely demons, fallen angels, that are servants to the demiurge, Satan. The archons are tyrannical and limiting agencies who rule over humanity and creation in order to enhance their own self-importance and glory. That's what they are. So the name is fitting on why they call themselves this, but they do not rule over humanity, just over the Black community in America. Now, their books do not mention that they took orders from others in higher positions that were not necessarily in their community of race. But if you understand the underworld, you understand how this all was. They say they wanted to be like Skull and Bones and Phi Beta Kappa. And those societies all were under the leadership of the family of bloodlines that held power over centuries. Now, at this point, I will stop with the history. If you want to know more about them, they are an important subject you should know and research. Charles Wesley, who himself is a Boule member and a Freemason, he has wrote a lot about them, and in his books, you can understand more about the organization. I want you to ask a majority of your parents, your grandparents, ask them about Sigma Pi Phi or the Boule, and I guarantee a majority of them would not know of them. They made sure that they were very secretive and under the radar, but yet they were very much present in our society. They were the actual gatekeepers of the Black community. And the heights of success that we see in America today in the Black community would not and did not happen without them. And this is the crazy part. Remember how I talked about how nobody wanted to be the house slave back then? Today, they are what we ultimately decide what our life goals should be like. Because of their power, their success, them being praised by the business leaders and the government leaders and all these other people, them having the fame and the fortune, they have made it that we desire to be like them. You see, when money, power, fame, and wealth are the primary drivers of our lives, it's very easy to implant those who have been given keys to the kingdom as being our examples and who we should be like. Now, here's the thing. Early on, these men were included not only by their status and by their success, but by their skin tone. Many of these men could also pass for white men, which made them able to be accepted easier amongst those in control. They passed those paper bag tests, and they were many of them descendants of the slave owners themselves. These are the founders. These were the men given the brown paper bag test, which they passed, and this is how they obtained power and then later controlled the power as it was passed down. This is all very deep. The white ruling class of this country allowed them to be very rich and offered them opportunities of education and status, which carried with it the tradition of the Western Eastern American civilization. Basically, when they freed the Negroes, they needed a way to draw them into American culture instead of allowing them to create their own thing in America, which is what the Black community tried to do, which is why it always got stomped out. So after the white ruling class of this country gained backing in the Black community through their Masonic internal organizations, creating these house slaves, they then got pickier and chose the ones that were going to be the examples for the Black community to try to eventually emulate and bring us into them. And after these men were created and solidified, then they created a civil rights campaign that teaches the Black community to assimilate just like those men instead of us being set apart and doing our own thing. The goal was always to assimilate us after they had control of our minds. They used these Boule members in many different ways. They had many different roles. One of the first elite members of the Boule was W.E.B. Du Bois, and he's quoted as saying, "The Boule was to keep the professional Blacks away from Garvey." Marcus Garvey, also another Freemason, he started the grass movement. His idea was to make America start a settlement in Liberia to control rubber crops and other natural resources. Garvey's famous quote was, "Why should not Africa give to the world its Black Rockefeller, Rothschild, and Henry Ford? Now is the opportunity. Now is the chance for every Negro to make effort toward a commercial, industrial standard that will make us comparable with the successful businessmen of other races." Around 1918, in the early stages of the Boule, Garvey's Back to Africa movement, through his newspaper, The Negro World, it was reaching over 1 million diasporic Africans, largely in North America, without TV or without radio. So with the Boule, Du Bois was tasked with stealing the Black professionals from the influence of Garvey because, in short, it went against the ultimate agenda. So Du Bois established his Boule chapter in New York, and the rise of Black civic organizations happened like the NAACP, the Urban League, and the 100 Black Men. This man was used to push the agenda that the white ruling class of the Masons they really wanted. The main point I'm making is that this elite class of black men who were extremely picky about who they included did not do their own bidding. They were sold out to the satanic elite class that were already controlling America. And they were the house Negroes that regulated the black community all the way until we are now at the time when they are our heroes, yet we know nothing about their organization and the roles that they have played in our society. Understand it like this. Those who secretly ran this country did not want the black community to turn to the Most High, so they controlled their goals and the agendas that they had. Later, moving us to the civil rights movement, where Boule member Michael King, mostly widely known as Martin Luther King Jr., he helped bring the final jab and exclamation point to their agenda of assimilation. And we have been unknowingly following their agenda and influence ever since. So here's the question. Why don't your parents and grandparents know much about them? Well, it's simple. They were hidden in the past. But in 1982, like I read earlier, the fraternity adopted a policy of limited and selected publicity, but they were still widely a secret to many. They have a website, though, and are hidden right in plain sight. The Divine Nine, the other Black Greek letter organizations that followed after, became their tools of recruitment. And so you normally would not see a member of the Boule that is not a member of these fraternities and sororities. Those members of the Divine Nine, they are just a low-hanging fruit, and most don't even know it or understand any of it. But that needs to be discussed as well. Some of the most notable members of the Boule are, like I've already noted, Michael King, W.E.B. Du Bois, Thurgood Marshall, Jesse Jackson, Bill Cosby, Tom Joyner, Arthur Ashe, Eric Holder, John Lewis, Kwesi Mfume, Robert Johnson, founder of BET. I mean, there are many names. On their website, they say, its past as well as its present members have been and are leaders in the struggle for civil rights, social justice, economic and educational equality, and in the implementation of public policy and healthcare initiatives that aid our underserved communities. Each member is committed to upholding the principles upon which the fraternity was founded, and thereby enriching the lives of our citizens. Each member strives to enhance the brilliance of its beacon light. Its over 100-year history is a testament to determination, dedication, and a commitment to excellence. You see, for me, my rule of thumb is anywhere that there are prominent Black professionals, chances are they're in the Boule. And then what I do is I look to see if they're part of a Greek letter fraternity. And if they are, I pay closer attention to what they're saying and what they're doing, just so I know what their agendas are. These people are very secret, so everyone attached is not known. But they are, in fact, the true gatekeepers of Black America, and they should never be ignored. Here's an activity. Anytime you see a prominent Black person in business or politics or religion anywhere, look to see if they're a member of a Divine Nine fraternity. If you remember when Kamala was being propped up, it was most of her Divine Nine people that were propping her up in the first place. When you understand this, you can always see that these figures have a door of control that was always opened. You see, the power structure of this world is right in our faces. And what they want us to do is ignore it and act like it's all coincidence. Listen, it's at this time they were about to enter into their new world that these groups pledged themselves to help promote, and they help set the stage for. It is at this time that they must be understood and their influence examined if you are trying to remove yourself from the influence of this world. Now, it's important that you know and understand this is nothing that you can stop or that you can change. This is not information for us to stop their organizations or those like them. The main part of this understanding is to see how controlled this world is and understand why it is necessary to be set apart from it. When you're following these people, you're following all these lies that these people are doing in their secret societies that they're not telling you, but they're attaching you to it in some way. When you understand this, you can understand the agendas like the civil rights movement, which was not actually about equal rights, but tying Negroes to the judgment that is set aside for this nation. When you understand this, you can understand when pastors like Jamal Bryant are using the pulpit to boycott Target. Like, why is he wasting his time with a message like this? You see, they're all being used for agendas that are used to bring the world to the acceptance of the beast, and the Negro community is very much important for many different reasons. But these Negroes are house slaves that are being used to tie us with them. I'm confident that if you're not a believer or strong in your belief, you may likely say, So what am I supposed to do with this information? But the answer is very simple for a true believer in Yahusha, the Messiah. The reason it's simple is because it's something we should do regardless if you know this information or not. And that is that we must be holy and set apart. I'm just showing you this information to really show you how much of this world you need to reject and why you should be rejecting it. I've been making videos trying to display how tainted this world really is. From my earlier videos about the symbols, you should see how many satanic symbols are lingering in our society. When exposing the matrix, it should be easy to see how much control these people have had over our world. When understanding mind control, you should be able to see how they have been directing us for decades. I want you to understand how deep all this goes, because for most of us, we can pinpoint exactly where in time we were sucked into this world and its agenda. And most of the time, it links back to these men and these organizations. The goal is to show you how polluted this world really is and how little control you have had in it. We have been guided and we have been directed to believe in and take part in a system that we have been manipulated to accept. They have given us heroes that were in secret actually our enemies, and they have made our enemies out of people that were actually our heroes. They have been working and guiding us into accepting their coming new world order and their false messiah. And if we don't want to feel the ultimate consequence of following them down this broad path that leads to destruction, you need to come out of Babylon and be separate. When I have said I don't vote, people used to come against me, not understanding how deep these people were in the system that were trying to steer us. I don't care about this system.
In my hospital room and said, John, don't worry. We will make it from Selma to Montgomery, and the Voting Rights Act will be passed.
Because it's all controlled by puppets. You'll hear many older generations like the baby boomers, they'll say they still participate and vote in the system because the older generations fought for this right. But the truth is that after you do the research, you should see that our older generations were just manipulated by these same groups of people that they did not even know existed. And me not participating is me trying to remove my blood from their iniquities. In this epistle, the Apostle Paul writes, "Do not be unequally yoked together with unbelievers. For what fellowship has righteousness with lawlessness? And what communion has light with darkness?" That's 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 14. You see, these people are unbelievers. They are knowingly working for the enemy of our faith. They are agents of darkness masquerading as agents of light. They are promoters of lawlessness. We should not be in communion with them. We should not be steered by them. But sometimes it's hard for this mentality to be understood if you have not been really exposed to this information. But in this time, before the wheat are separated from the tares, Father is giving us all a chance to repent and choose our side that we're going to be on. And he is allowing you to be informed of what is being done in the darkness so you can make a solid decision. But in the end, it's up for you to choose. If we say that we have fellowship with him and walk in darkness, we lie and do not practice the truth. But if we walk in the light as he is in the light, we have fellowship with one another. And the blood of Yahusha the Messiah, his son, cleanses us from all sin. 1 John chapter 1, verses 6 and 7. You see, much of what we do and how we live today has been manipulated by agents of darkness, promoting their God of this world to us. Just because there are things that's labeled a black agenda, that doesn't mean that it's actually good for you. Just because we were slaves and treated as 3/5 of a person does not mean that we must seek equality from these same people who did the oppressing. The only reason they have been showing another side and trying to draw us in is because they want to tie us to their fate. This is not a black or white issue, though this agenda has been heavily marketed to the black community. This is a very spiritual issue that has been masqueraded and identified by Satan through race, but it's so much deeper than skin color. That's another subject. The bottom line is that you need to make a decision on whose path that you're on. Whose agenda are you fighting for and following? There is a civil rights agenda that is on par with Michael King's dream, and that dream is tied to the promised land of a new world to come. And there is an actual promise of our Father in heaven to be in his kingdom and to be in full fellowship with him as he establishes his kingdom on earth and takes away all unrighteousness on this earth when he restores his people back to his land. These organizations have been acting like we are all on the same goal when we're not. There are two paths in the road, and you need to decide which one you're going down. This information was given to you so you can see what has been hidden from you. In the end, it is up to you, the path that you choose. It is time to get on the narrow path and follow our Savior and not be steered by this world. It's time for you to choose, though. What will you choose? Make sure you choose our Father in heaven and be ready for him, because the time is almost up on all these lies and the illusions. Serve our Father Yahuwah today and believe in his son Yahusha the Messiah. Come out of Babylon today, all of her ways and all of her mindsets. Come out of her and be redeemed. The time for your decision is now. Be blessed.
This series is dedicated to Brother Steve Coakley.
And in fact, I always thought that the one who spreads the fear is as guilty of perpetrating the negativity as the one who allegedly does it.
In the previous episode, we discussed the new Negro philosophy that grew out of Harlem and its connections to the Black Power and civil rights movements of the 50s and 60s. We also highlighted some of the key players in Harlem and how their roles may have began in Harlem, but found their ways to the national stage. Adam Clayton Powell was one of these key players mentioned. His voice was recognized as the most militant persona in politics, and he was endorsed and a close associate of Malcolm X. And as Malcolm once put it, the Harlem Negro is the most intellectually sophisticated Negro in the country. This presumably was contrary to every other type of Negro in the country, but especially the Southern Negro, who was seen by many urban Negroes as weak, docile, slow, uneducated, and barely out of the shackles of slavery. Simply put, Northern Negroes looked down upon the Southern Negroes. This has more elements than just the Mason-Dixon beef. The philosophical dichotomy between the Northern and Southern Negro would set the stage for the civil rights movement, but ultimately, it would be in the South where the biggest battles were fought. In this episode, we detail the era between Reconstruction and the Civil Rights Movement with a specific focus on the Southern Negro as opposed to the Northern Negro or the Harlem Negro. We also detail a brief history of the Ku Klux Klan and how they played a key role in the Civil Rights Movement of the 50s and 60s. In comparison between the Northern and Southern Negroes, the Northern Negroes mostly had Southern roots, but had moved to the northern cities following Reconstruction, leading up to the Great Migration. The majority of the so-called Black population that lived in the South were actually enslaved indigenous people who had been conquered throughout colonization. These indigenous people would later be classified as African Americans. without any evidence that these millions of people were ever connected to the transatlantic slave trade. The presumed African origins of colored people in the South have more of a fictional basis than a reliable historical foundation, as we have mentioned in several past episodes. The so-called African blood is almost always Indian blood. There is no documented evidence in the transatlantic slave trade that could account for the overall population of so-called blacks in the South. This is the biggest hole in their African theory. How did all of these Africans arrive into the Deep South? Through what port did they arrive? New Orleans? Biloxi? Did they arrive in Charleston and then trek across the entire continent? What series of voyages recorded in the transatlantic slave trade database documents the over 4 million blacks in the South originating from Africa? These are just a few questions we will attempt to answer. Conditions for colored people in the South were always highlighted by a myriad of government and private schemes looking to steal indigenous land. This ultimately led to the skepticism Americans had in dealing with the government, which is also a primary reason why some indigenous people didn't want their children educated in the newly established Negro public schools, looking to push the agenda for Black literacy. They were by and large untrusting of the government, especially in the South. But if you fast forward a couple of generations, Negroes in the North with Southern roots would soon be looking for the government to enforce their civil rights. In general, this idea may be a little dangerous for the Southern Negro to petition the government for rights. Brother, what you talking about? Should I then go petition Massa for a 401k and dental? A dangerous proposition for a Mississippian, fresh off the chain. However, in the South, the Klan was its own government. You've heard the legend about how Black people have fought and died for their chance to vote. The popular opinion was that the Klan was actually created to suppress the Black vote. The first real post-Civil War movement to re-disenfranchise colored people was this anti-voting movement inspired by the Ku Klux Klan, literally designed to subvert the Republican Party, especially the participation of so-called blacks within politics in general. At the time, the Republican Party was really the only party a so-called colored man had a chance to have a platform in. Indeed, the Klan is a political group, although some historians may push back and say that the Klan really started as an odd secret society of jackass weirdos, running around pulling Steve-O-type shenanigans and pranks on unsuspecting citizens. The Klan has many veiled faces. Yes, it is a political group. Yes, it is a secret society. Yes, it is a militia. Yes, it is a terrorist organization. Yet the faces of the Klan have evolved over the time since its creation. From selling tickets and photos at lynchings like it was a main event boxing match, to being suppressed by the military and nearly disbanded, to being popularized in American culture in the first blockbuster movie of all time, to being hailed as the redeemers of white purity and the protector of the precious snow bunny from the black boa constrictor. The Klan has many faces under that hood. There was an underlying sexual vulnerability that permeated the cracker Klan consciousness. They were obsessed with black dick, even more than a Kardashian or a ratchet pinky toe or even Langston Hughes. The Klan loved themselves some coon cock. They loved to chop off a colored man's dick, put it in a jar, and show it to all their friends, like the true weirdos they are. The first generation Cave Clan embodied all of the qualities of a plantation villain, the definition of DWBs. Following the Civil War, as county and state political structures began to develop across the South, voting became an important civil act for the newly enfranchised Negroes, particularly in rural areas where Negroes would outnumber whites. Pulling together votes for the colored interest was a serious threat to the small town white expectations for establishment. In a local election that could be decided by less than 24 votes, certain whites found it strategic, necessary, and even downright fun to terrorize so-called colored people at the polls, essentially using violence to intimidate voters to suppress votes that would most likely be cast for the Republican candidate. Quote, Election Day riot of 1868, 14 Negroes wounded and 1 killed. This riot took place in Asheville, North Carolina. When black men showed up to vote in downtown Asheville on November 3rd, 1868, members of the Klan gathered at the polling place. The Klan, a white supremacist terrorist organization, had entered Western North Carolina in the spring with the goal of preventing black men from participating in elections. Black men had been registered to vote with the help of the Freedmen's Bureau, a federal organization set up to help the South transition from slavery to freedom for blacks. When some of the black men cheered Republican Congressman Alexander H. Jones, a white man, as he passed by, white men reputed to be Klan members attacked. According to one account, in a very few minutes, the rebels fired about 40 times into them. 14 black men were wounded, and one, James Smith, was killed. Jones fled and hid in Raleigh. So this is just one of several accounts of the Klan actually coming into the polling place and intimidating black voters to the point where they started shooting at black voters and one was killed. This was their mode of operation throughout the South and throughout the election of 1868. Another method to the Klan madness born out of their obsession for black genitalia was fabricating the myth of the renegade black rapist. This was their typical MO used to justify mob violence and taking the law into their own hands. But this should be no surprise. The organization was headed by one of the top scumbags in American history. Nathan Bedford Forrest was a Freemason, a well-known slave trader, and a Confederate war hero to the racist Southerner. In April 1864, the unit under his command massacred a group of Union troops who had surrendered at Fort Pillow in a mixed unit of black and white soldiers. His men killed the majority of the colored men in the unit. Men who were kneeling to surrender were forced to their feet and shot, while others were beaten, tortured, nailed to boards, and burned alive. Those who tried to escape were shot in the back. Forrest made it a point to treat black soldiers with more brutality, as a warning to the Union Army about using colored troops. Northerners saw him as a slave-driving war criminal. Southerners saw him as a hero. This led to him being chosen as the first Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan, even without the knowledge that he had been nominated or chosen. Forrest was also a key figure in the Battle of Selma, which he lost a century before Bloody Sunday. Forrest and his men surrendered in Selma, but the gentlemen of the Union Army decided not to shoot them in the face or torture them, as they had done at the Fort Pillow massacre. His time in the Klan began around 1867. The group had already been created the previous year and found him qualified to be its first Grand Wizard. Killing niggas on a whim was his top qualification, a character trait Confederate cavemen could stand behind. He quickly began terrorizing Negroes, pillaging small black communities at night during his ghost masquerades. The Klan, for the first time, had a national identity. Until then, it had been mostly an organized, unconnected band of white supremacist pockets in the South, comprised of different dens of Confederate sympathizers. Now, they had a leader and a face. The first iteration of the Klan was like the extreme version of White Boys Gone Wild, essentially ransacking unsuspecting colored victims with violent, reckless abandon without consequence. This era of violence followed the assassination of Lincoln in 1865 and was in the wake of the 1868 presidential election between Democrat Horatio Seymour and Republican Ulysses S. Grant. During the election, squads of dirty white boys harassed, terrorized, kidnapped, beat, tortured, and even murdered Americans at the polls. Forrest would also campaign himself during the election. On the recruiting trail looking to grow White Hood membership, he traveled all over the South in preparation for their lynch mob shenanigans, holding hang a nigga pep rallies in front of calcified crowds of thousands. By the election in 1868, there were over 1,000 incidents, including the attack of Americans at the polls by the KKK and other splinter cells of white supremacy. There was an inherent, yet fundamental hatred among Confederate whites and their feelings toward Negroes that went far beyond just racism. Most of the socially prominent men in the South were former Confederate soldiers who had just lost the war and the right to hold public office. But most of the voting socially active Negroes were veterans of the victorious Union Army. It was already bad enough they lost the war, but losing the election to a nappy-headed tar baby made them Confederate crackers downright saltine. In the areas where colored participation was more active, so were the Pink Pillagers. In 1866, in Memphis and New Orleans, two cities with significantly higher populations of freedmen, after the war, there were scenes of massacre and riots. In both cases, the police departments in Memphis and New Orleans were involved in the perpetuation of terrorism against its colored citizens. In Memphis, Negroes were destructively pushed out of the city, resulting in a significant reduction of the Memphis Negro population. Men were tortured, beaten, and killed. Women were raped. Homes, schools, and churches were burned. But there was also another underlying factor to this bad blood: the hate Irish immigrants had for the newly enfranchised Americans. The Irish were just getting their foot in the American door, as most Irish non-indentured servants were first or second generation, and now their jobs are getting taken away by the newly ascended Negroes. The Memphis Police Department was notoriously corrupt and routinely threatened and harassed colored Union soldiers. Nearly all police officers in Memphis at the time were Irish immigrants. These Mickey Fickies got their willies wet tormenting Negroes, so they took special exception to seeing Negroes in uniform wielding firearms, who would at times intervene when the police would senselessly beat citizens in the streets. The consequence of this tension between Irish police officers and Black Union soldiers led to the 1866 massacre. Other areas were also affected by other forms of mob violence. Resentful rebels ran roughshod and created the conditions of chaos, danger, and uncertainty that people hadn't experienced since before the war. Because now the recently emancipated people who are being threatened now have arms. This always instilled within whites fear of Black retribution. If the frontier west of the Mississippi was called the Wild West, then this was the savage South. And if the whites weren't afraid of Negro insurrection, they were under the constant threat of the wild Black rapist and his big black snake that'll make even the purest white woman moan.
Get your ass back in my house.
And them good old boys would stop at nothing to keep those mangy moon cricket claws off Betsy's milky white skin. And if that meant they had to fabricate rape narratives, so be it. Them boys were running wild. So wild that after Grant won the presidency, he sent the military down south to corral the Klan and their cronies. This act is monumental for being possibly the first time the American government intervened against whites for the protection of so-called blacks. After the military was sent by Grant, the Klan was thwarted, but was not completely destroyed. The members were still out there pulling stunts, but their power had been greatly diminished. This marks the end of the first KKK era. However, the Klan would rise again. Who were these so-called black people being terrorized by the Klan? The conventional belief was that all these black people who had formerly been enslaved were Africans. But was that true? For context, we are referring to the so-called colored people from Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi, Arkansas, and Louisiana. The most pressing question would be, if all of these so-called black people were transported from Africa, by what means did they reach the Deep South? Is there any evidence in the transatlantic slave trade database that the number of people representative of the black population in the Deep South went through any of the ports in that area? The largest slave trading port in this area was New Orleans. And there are a few others. But to put these statistics in context, according to the database, less than 10,000 Africans disembarked at the port of New Orleans throughout the entirety of the slave trade, from as early as 1719 to 1860. But the black population in the South was in the millions. Are we really supposed to believe that the millions of Negroes in the Deep South were descended from just a couple of thousand Africans recorded in the database? As mentioned previously, the largest slave ports were on the east coast of the United States. Places like Maryland, Virginia, and New York had the highest number of slaves entering and exiting through their ports. And cities like Charleston and Savannah were the closest major ports in the Deep South. And yet that location is nowhere close to the millions of so-called Negroes along the Mississippi. And to assume that a shipment of Africans could arrive at Charleston and then trek over 1,000 miles across the country, over the Appalachian Mountains, and to the river by slave traders is an asinine, Assa 10, Assa 11 assumption. These people who were enslaved had always lived on the land, but were eventually pushed out, first by the French, prior to the French-Indian War, and then later the British, and then the Americans after the Revolution. The majority of these people enslaved in the Deep South were descendants of the tribes along the Mississippi, like the Natchez, the Chitimacha, the Choctaw, the Creek, and Chickasaw, just to name a few. Any scholastic citation that accounts these people along the Mississippi River as African is patently false and cannot be substantiated by any historical documentation or even in the transatlantic slave trade database. The Klan would rise again after the release of quite possibly the first blockbuster movie of all time, The Birth of a Nation, by D.W. Griffith. The movie glorifies the Klan and promoted the idea that Klansmen were heroes protecting the sanctity of white purity from the savage Negro. The picture has been described by film critics as possibly the most racist movie of all time, but also one of the greatest works of early cinematography, a masterpiece of racism. Racism and politics are a central theme of the movie. But also, another recurring theme is the renegade Negro rapist. In the movie, Southern whites are portrayed as being unfairly treated by the newly installed Union government, promoting the idea that the poor whites were denied the right to vote while blacks unfairly stuffed the ballot box. Welcome back to Charlatan's Web. Quote, The Birth of a Nation is a 1915 American silent epic drama film directed by D.W. Griffith and starring Lillian Gish. The screenplay is adapted from Thomas Dixon Jr.'s 1905 novel and play, The Klansman. Griffith co-wrote the screenplay with Frank E. Woods and produced the film with Harry Aitken. The Birth of a Nation is a landmark of film history, lauded for its technical virtuosity. It is the first non-serial American 12-reel film ever made. Its plot, part fiction and part history, chronicles the assassination of Abraham Lincoln by John Wilkes Booth and the relationship of two families in the Civil War and Reconstruction eras over the course of several years. The pro-Union Northern Stonemans and the pro-Confederacy Southern Camerons. It was originally shown in two parts, separated by an intermission, and it was the first American-made film to have a musical score for an orchestra. It helped pioneer close-ups and fade-outs, and it includes a carefully staged battle sequence with hundreds of extras, made to look like thousands. It came with a 13-page souvenir program. It was the first motion picture to be screened inside the White House, viewed there by President Woodrow Wilson, his family, and members of his cabinet. Woodrow Wilson, by the way, a staunch racist and supporter of the Ku Klux Klan. The film was controversial even before its release and has remained so ever since. It has been called the most controversial film ever made in the United States and the most reprehensibly racist film in Hollywood history. The film has been denounced for its racist depiction of African Americans. The film portrays its black characters, many of whom are played by white actors in blackface, as unintelligent and sexually aggressive toward white women. The Ku Klux Klan, a white supremacist far-right hate group, is portrayed as a heroic force that protects white women and maintains white supremacy. Popular among white artists nationwide upon its release, the film's success was both a consequence and a contributor to racial segregation throughout the United States. The film's success was both a consequence and a contributor to racial segregation throughout the United States. In response to the film's depictions of Black people in Civil War history, African Americans across the United States organized and protested. In Boston and other localities, Black leaders in the NAACP spearheaded an unsuccessful campaign to have it banned on the basis that it inflamed racial tensions and could incite violence. And this is in 1915. So this is one of the first national campaigns that drew attention to the NAACP. It was also denied release in the state of Ohio, in the cities of Chicago, Denver, Pittsburgh, St. Louis, and Minneapolis. Griffith's indignation at efforts to censor or ban the film motivated him to produce Intolerance the following year. A 2023 study found that screenings of the film during its original release were linked to a spike in racist violence. So when the white boys saw this movie, they was ready to go turn up. The Birth of a Nation was a massive commercial success across the nation, grossing far more than any previous motion picture, and it profoundly influenced both the film industry and American culture. Adjusted for inflation, the film remains one of the highest grossing films ever made. It has been acknowledged as an inspiration for the rebirth of the Ku Klux Klan, which we will talk about coming up, which took place only a few months after its release. It popularized the Klan so much, there was a rebirth in membership, which took place only a few months after its release. In 1992, the Library of Congress deemed the film culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant and selected it for preservation in the National Film Registry. So the main point that I want to make here is to show that the release of Birth of a Nation, initially labeled The Klansman, actually caused a spike in membership and the revival or rebirth of the Klan. So right now, I want to go over a quick synopsis of the movie so you understand what the movie's about. And then we're going to look at a couple of scenes from the movie, as long as YouTube doesn't shut the video down. I believe since this movie's in the National Film Registry, I should be able to use it in my video. Part 1, Civil War of the United States. Phil, the elder son of the Stonemans, a northern family, falls in love with Margaret Cameron, the daughter of a southern family, during a visit to the Cameron estate in South Carolina. There, Margaret's brother Ben idolizes a picture of Elsie Stoneman, Phil's sister. When the Civil War arrives, the young men of both families enlist in their respective armies. The younger Stoneman and 2 of the Cameron brothers die in combat. Meanwhile, a black militia attacks the Cameron home and is routed by Confederate soldiers who save the Cameron women. Oh, those heroic Confederate soldiers, leading to the final charge at the Siege of Petersburg. Ben Cameron earns the nickname of the Little Colonel, but is also wounded and captured. He is then taken to a Union military hospital in Washington, D.C. During his stay at the hospital, he learns that he will be hanged. They took him to the hospital to hang him. Seems like a waste of a hospital visit. Working there as nurse is Elsie Stoneman. What? Elsie Stoneman is a nurse up in that piece? Whose picture he has been carrying. He's been carrying this whole picture the whole time. And she just happened to be there at the hospital. Serendipity, my Nick. Elsie takes Cameron's mother, who traveled there to tend to her son and to see Abraham Lincoln. Mrs. Cameron persuades him to pardon Ben. After Lincoln's assassination, his conciliatory post-war policy expires with him. Elsie's father and other radical Republicans are determined to punish the South. Oh, shit. Part 2, Reconstruction. Stoneman and his protege, Silas Lynch, a psychopathic mulatto, head to South Carolina. So later on, we'll find out the character Silas Lynch is based off R.H. Gleaves. And remember, R.H. Gleaves was the prominent South Carolina free colored man who was also a prominent Prince Hall Freemason. And in particular, the state of South Carolina is what this film focuses on, as well as the focus of the Klan violence during the late 1860s, in which Ulysses S. Grant had to send the military. He sent the military to South Carolina. Reason being, we had all of these free colored men and mulattoes and some black men who had actually been elected to positions such as lieutenant governor and Congress. R.H. Gleaves is being portrayed in this film by the character Silas Lynch, a quote-unquote psychopathic mulatto. Part of this character is based off Alonzo Ranzier, who is also a politician, lieutenant governor, and or congressman, similar to R.H. Gleaves. And let's not forget, these men in South Carolina and Mississippi and other states in the South were elected at least 50 years before Adam Clayton Powell was elected to represent Harlem. Stoneman and his protege, Silas Lynch, a psychopathic mulatto, head to South Carolina to observe the implementation of Reconstruction policies. During the election in which Lynch is elected lieutenant governor, black people stuff the ballot boxes, while many white people are denied the vote. Oh, did that happen? The newly elected members of the South Carolina legislature were mostly black. Inspired by observing white children pretending to be ghosts to scare black children, Ben fights back by forming the Ku Klux Klan. What? Inspired by white children pretending to be ghosts to scare black children. That's a hell of an inspiration. There are a few schools of thought about where exactly the white hood came from. And it seems as though in the early days of the Klan, they were just using sheets. And at some point, it became a pointed hood. So honestly, the costume that the hood fits best with is the capriote, a Christian pointed hat of conical form that is used in Spain and Hispanic countries by members of a confraternity of penitents, particularly those of the Catholic Church. It is part of the uniform of such brotherhoods, including the Nazarenos and the Farisios. Oh, really? the Nazarenos and the Pharisios. Capriote are won by penitents so that attention is not drawn toward themselves as they repent, but instead to God. So you mean to tell me a nigga with a big pointed white, blue, green hood over his face with the eyes cut out is meant not to draw attention to himself? So the Capriote is like the closest thing to the Klan hood. But we'll go with D.W. Griffith, inspired by white children pretending to be ghosts to scare black children. As a result, Elsie breaks up with him. Oh, okay. All right. Oh, you want to do that? Well, I'm going to break up with you. All right. Oh, so kids inspire you, nigga? The little niggas is inspiring you and shit, but I can't inspire you? Nigga, I'm out. While going off alone into the woods to fetch water, Flora Cameron is followed by Gus, a freedman and a soldier, who is now a captain. Gus says that he desires to marry Flora. Uninterested, she rejects him, but Gus keeps insisting. Frightened, she flees into the forest pursued by Gus. Trapped on a precipice, Flora threatens to jump if he comes any closer. When he does, she leaps to her death. While looking for Flora, Ben sees her jump and holds her as she dies. He then carries her body to the Cameron home. In response, the Klan hunts down Gus, tries him, finds him guilty, lynches him, and delivers his corpse to the home of Silas Lynch. After discovering Gus's murder, Lynch orders a crackdown on the Klan. He also secures the passing of legislation allowing mixed-race marriages. Oh, shit now. There's a legal loophole for Betsy to get her white dress all dirty and brown. Dr. Cameron is arrested for possessing Ben's Klan regalia, now considered a capital crime. Oh, Silas Lynch wasn't playing. He is rescued by Phil Stoneman and some of his black servants. What? The Stonemans came to... Whoa. Together with Margaret Cameron, they flee. When their wagon breaks down, they make their way through the woods to a small hut that is home to two former Union soldiers who agreed to hide them. Congressman Stoneman, Elsie's father, leaves to avoid being connected with Lynch's crackdown. Elsie, learning of Dr. Cameron's arrest, visits Lynch to plead for his release. Lynch, who lusts after Elsie, tries to force her to marry him. Oh, shit. We've got the psychopathic mulatto lusting for a white woman. Lynch, who lusts after Elsie, tries to force her to marry him, which causes her to faint. Oh, no, not Silas Lynch. No. Stoneman returns, calling Elsie to be placed in another room. At first, Stoneman is happy when Lynch says he wants to marry a white woman. But he is then angered when Lynch says he wishes to marry Elsie. She breaks the window and cries for help, getting the attention of undercover Klanman spies. Oh, shit. The Klan gathered together with Ben leading them. Fucking Ben Cameron, bro. Ride in to gain control of the town. When the news about Elsie reaches Ben, he and others go to her rescue. Lynch, the psychopathic mulatto based off R.H. Cleaves, is captured while his militia attacks the hut where the Camerons are hiding. However, the Klansmen, with Ben at their head, save them. Aww. The next election day, black men find a line of mounted and armed Klansmen outside their homes and are intimidated into not voting. Margaret Cameron marries Phil Stoneman, and Elsie Stoneman marries Ben Cameron. Oh. And I guess them niggas live happily ever after. End quote. Charlatan's Web. Now that we got the gist of the movie, let's take a look at a couple of these scenes, because they are fucking hilarious. to get an idea of the plot, we're just going to go through a couple of scenes because this shit is hilarious. It's kind of like a history lesson and a comedy lesson all at the same time. Also a film lesson. So in chronological order, we're going to go through some of these scenes in the movie. And you'll notice that there'll be a lot of characters in blackface when we talk about the blackface of white power. In this example, it's actually blackface. It's white people in blackface. And this is one of the opening scenes of the movie. And you see here, this Mammy character. Look at this nigga right here. White people in blackface playing black people looked crazy. Looking like a man. I mean, straight up white Tyler Perry vibes. That's crazy. Now, this is the scene where the dude's been carrying around the picture of Elsie Stoneman. There were a lot of black extras in the movie, but you'll also have the white people in blackface. And that's actually the most ridiculous aspect of the entire movie. So you'll see an actual colored person, and then you'll see a white person in blackface. And most of the time when they're using a white person in blackface, it's because they're getting more screen time. They're not considered an extra. This is the scene where old boy got put in the hospital, and it just so happens to be at the same hospital where Elsie Stoneman's working. Now remember, Elsie Stoneman is the little chick who he was carrying the picture for. She just happens to be the hospital piccolo player. This bitch is the hospital piccolo player. She's the hospital banjo player, apparently. And so then the nigga's like, so he's like, oh shit. He wakes up. He like, oh shit. Is that the bitch been carrying a picture around this whole time? Like, bitch, I got your picture in my pocket, bitch. I got your picture in my pocket, bitch. You playing the piccolo in the hospital, bitch? Let's go. Bitch, I had your picture in my pocket, bitch. So when he tell the bitch that he got her picture in his pocket, right? And then he pulls the picture out. And then she's looking at the picture. What is she thinking? Is she thinking, man, this shit is romantic as fuck? This nigga been carrying my picture around. Or is she thinking, this nigga creepy as fuck? What is she thinking right now? She's not weirded out. There's no weirdo vibes. Nigga just carrying your picture in his pocket. That's not his girl, by the way. That's not his girl. That's the Stoneman girl? Shit, boy. Can't believe that shit. You know that was thrown off and that nigga pulled that picture out like, this me, nigga? Yeah, man. I've been carrying this shit. And now they gonna hang me? So I think the mama went to Lincoln or Joe Biden, either one of those niggas, and got a pardon for your boy. So he's no longer being hanged. Which means him and Elsie, the picture in your pocket, bitch, they got a chance for love. They got a chance for love now. They show the entire assassination scene of Abraham Lincoln. They got the nigga John Wilkes Booth in the shadows, got his little gun and shit. Basically, they said the nigga who was supposed to be watching the door, he done dipped off to try to watch the play and shit. This is when Wilkes Booth snuck in there. This nigga was trying to see the show. But they clapped that nigga up too. And the nigga jumped down. He was like, Sic Semper Tyrannis, nigga. Sic Semper Tyrannis, nigga. They told that nigga Stoneman. Stoneman's like, oh, shit. What now? What are we going to do? They done killed the president. What we going to do? What we going to do, Mr. Stoneman? What we going to do now? The white men were roused by a mere instinct of self-preservation until at last there had sprung into existence a great Ku Klux Klan. And here go this nigga Stoneman and Silas Lynch said, I shall make this man Silas Lynch as a symbol of his race, the peer of any white man living. The peer of any white man living. The nigga Woodrow Wilson like, them niggas can't be our peers. So now after the emancipation you see here, so hey, them niggas is dancing, niggas is run amok. Right, those are actual Negroes in this scene right here. Ain't no blackface because somebody had to dance. I don't know that one right there in the back, one clapping. He might be in blackface. The Freedmen's Bureau, the niggers getting free supplies. The charity of a generous North misused to delude the ignorant. Oh, them niggas are getting free supplies. Government whores. This nigga got a hat from the government, my nigga. Now, when a white man walks down the street, he's got to watch out. Right? They all happy. They feeling good and shit. So, boy, watch out, white boy. I'll you up. Slap the shit out your ass, boy. And all them niggas is like, ha, 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 ha. This nigga Silas gonna come in real quick. This nigga Silas like, hey, this sidewalk belongs to us as much as it does to you, Colonel Cameron. No, this is a white man's sidewalk. This nigga Silas Lynch is the psychopathic mulatto, by the way, as described by the niggas on Wikipedia. There's a bunch of white girl flailing in this movie, man. All the white bitches is like, ooh, ooh, all over the goddamn movie. Ooh, 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 flailing ass bitches, boy. I'm talking about them white bitches is flailing all over this bitch. Call that nigga Silas Lynch a traitor to his white patron and a greater traitor to his own people, whom he plans to lead by an evil way to build himself a throne of vaulting power. Money-hungry half-breed. These are legitimate black actors in this scene where it's showing the South Carolina House of Representatives. You see this nigga up front, this nigga sleep. You see these niggas are all riled up. And they looking in like, oh man, look at those niggas, man. They're all rabble-roused. Stoneman's the guest of honor amongst all the niggas. Now you see here Silas Lynch, R.H. Gleaves. He's like, yes, y'all my niggas. So not a lot of white face here, authentic Negroes. A lot more authentic Negroes, right? I wonder when this nigga's talking right here, like, what is he saying? Tired of all them bitch ass niggas. Tired of all you bitch ass niggas. What's he saying right there? I'm tired of all them bitch ass niggas. Tired of all them bitch ass niggas. Silas Lynch, the champion of the Negro. So this is the election day scene here. All blacks are given the ballot while the leading whites are disenfranchised. All blacks are given the ballot while the leading whites are disenfranchised. Those damn niggers taking all the votes from the good old whites. This is the scene where the Negroes are stuffing the ballot boxes. Receiving the returns, the Negroes and the carpetbaggers sweep the state. Scallywags were Southerners who supported the Republican Party, and carpetbaggers were Northerners who came to the South to support the Republican Party. Both of these are supposed to be slurs or pejorative terms. So the niggas are celebrating their victory. You can see here that all the white people are afraid now. As soon as Silas Lynch is elected, all of a sudden, the niggas start to go crazy. And that was already actually going crazy before. That boy Silas got elected. Them niggas is out here in the streets talking all kinds of shit to them white boy. White boy, I'll fuck you up. You better get the off the sidewalk, white boy. The riot in the Masters Hall, the Negro Party in control in the State House of Representatives, 101 blacks against 23 whites, session of 1871. An historical facsimile of the House of State Representatives of South Carolina, as it was in 1870, after a photograph by the Columbia State. 101 to 23? All kind of nigga up in that motherfucker, boy. You see these niggas is up here in the damn Masters Hall, acting a damn fool. My nigga getting his little drink on. Niggas doing nigga things, you feel me? Now, this nigga took his shoe off. See, that's some old other right there. Now my nigga eating chicken and yelling. You know what I'm saying? See, these niggas is out of control. I understand why they wanted to get the white purity. I mean, look at these niggas. These niggas is out of control. The speaker rules that all, yes, nigga, y'all gotta wear shoes up in here, bro. It is moved and carried that all whites must salute Negro officers in the streets. Oh, y'all, yes, sir. Hey, white boy, you see me over here, you better motherfucker salute. This nigga Gus he been on one the whole movie, right? He's staring at the little white girl. She's staring at the squirrel and shit. This nigga, what's the name? Flora? This nigga Gus is like, I'm a captain now, bitch. That's what's up, bitch. I'm a captain now. I want to marry you. I see what I want. Let me get that. And she like, no, Gus, no. Commence the chase, bitch. Come here, bitch. Now, this nigga Gus right here is one of the most ridiculous looking niggas throughout the whole movie. She said, no, Gus. Now this nigga Gus chasing the bitch through the woods, through the forest, over the hill, and through the woods to grandmama's house. He done chased the bitch up a fucking mountain. This bitch like, no, Gus. Leave me alone, Gus. I don't want that. I don't want you. All right, I'm a pure white woman, all right? I'll never let the hands of a dirty Negro touch my milky white skin. Get away, Gus. Get away, Gus. Stay away, Gus, or I'll jump. I have yet to flail. I have yet to flail, Gus. Bitch. Come here, bitch. Let me get some of that. I told you I'm a captain now, bitch. I got benefits. Even if you jump, I can get that cover because, you know, I got benefits, bitch. I'm making a little money, bitch. Your man broke, bitch. What you mean? Say, bitch, you ain't finna jump off no fucking cliff, bitch. Ooh! Ooh! This bitch really jumped. Man, that bitch hit the ground. Damn, bitch, you really jumped. This bitch jumped. Look at that. Waste of a perfectly good bitch. Oh, stupid asshole. Should have gave me some. Your stupid ass would be alive. Just jumped off the mountain. She said, nigga, you will not touch me. I will jump off this cliff, nigga. Back up. Jump off the motherfucking mountain, motherfucker. This bitch said I would rather jump off the cliff than let a nigga touch me. That bitch took her purity very seriously. The sanctity of her coochie to extreme proportions. No, nigga, you will not touch me, nigga. I will jump off this motherfucking cliff before I let you get anywhere close to me. You dirty, dirty nigger. He's like, oh my God, what happened? What happened? The bitch said, the nigger pushed me. The nigger was chasing me through the woods. The nigger was chasing me through the woods. He just want my twat, but I ain't letting him have it. I jumped the cliff. I got up there. I got up there and the nigger pushed me. He's like, oh man, these niggers are out of control. We got white bitches jumping off cliffs. Now what the fuck are we supposed to do? I got white bitches jumping off fucking cliffs. And then this motherfucker say, for her who had learned the stern lesson of honor, we should not grieve that she found sweeter the opal gates of death. Now that's some raw shit right there. These motherfuckers is basically saying, better for a bitch to die than to let a nigga touch her. Better for a bitch to jump a motherfucking cliff than get molested by a mangy moon cricket. They wasn't playing about this bitch white purity, bro. Sweeter the opal gates of death. Bitch is going to clan heaven. This nigga Gus is out of control, though. I ain't gonna lie. This nigga Gus is out of control. Townsmen enlisted in the search of the accused Gus that he may be given a fair trial in the dim halls of the invisible empire. That he may be given a fair trial by the invisible empire. Hey, man, let's go find Gus so we can try him fairly. All right, let's go. We're going to get him. I got to find that damn Gus so we can arrest him and try him fairly, that is. All the black people they just recklessly just fucking with white people all movie. Hey, and this nigga Gus is a fucking menace now. This nigga Gus is a menace. Now, these white boys thought they was tough. They done ran up in a whole house full of niggas. One white boy, listen, he out there, he done whoop every nigga ass in the room. Then he gonna hit this nigga in the head like, yeah. He hit that nigga. You can see that shit. Look at this. He gonna grab the motherfucking bottle or something, that nigga through that chair. Still gonna hit that nigga, hit that nigga right in the head, This nigga thought he was bad too. He's like, oh yeah, come on now. He picked this nigga up. Now he throw him outside and he's sitting down gently now. As far as hard as you hit that nigga with the bottle, he sit that nigga down gently as fuck, right? And then he gets shot in the back. And then he like, Gus, finish him off, Gus. Pow! Like, Gus, kill this nigga. This nigga Gus he's like, nigga, I told you, nigga, I'm Gus, bitch. I'm Gus. I'm out of here. You know, that's when you knew Gus was a piece of shit right there. The way he hugged that wall. I don't know what it is. But when he hugged that wall right there, I was like, nah, this nigga Gus is a piece of shit. Did I seen that nigga Gus? Where's Gus? I seen that nigga. Said, what happened? It's Gus. It's Gus, man. That nigga Gus is somewhere. He done shot one of the good white boys. This nigga Gus is, hey, these niggas is wild on the horseback. I ain't even gonna lie. This nigga said, hey, I'm gonna get you, Gus. This is the one right here. Before they was just shooting. You know what I'm saying? They was shooting indiscriminately. That nigga slowed down and put that dead eye on that motherfucker. The nigga said, bow, bow, bow. Oh, nah. Slow down, nigga. Slow down. Watch this. Watch this shit right here. Bow. Shot the nigga down. Oh, shit. Oh, let's go get that nigga. That's Gus right there. This nigga Gus trying to get away. Like, nah, we got your bitch ass. We've been looking for you. We've been looking for you. We about to try you fairly right now, my nigga. You finna get tried fairly. All right, well, where's my attorney? Who's my attorney? I want Silas Lynch as my attorney. Nah, nigga, the bitch, I'm telling you, she jumped. What's the white boy who was there? Nah, the white boy who was there can vouch. That bitch jumped. The bitch jumped, bro. What you want me to do? Now, I did kill the white boy back there at the farm. But y'all trying me for the bitch. This is two different crimes, bro. That bitch is lying. So now they done tried the nigga Gus. They done killed the nigga Gus. Then they take him to Silas Lynch house with the little KKK and skull and bone shit. That shit was kind of corny. Little KKK and skull and bones bullshit. It's like, yeah, we'll cop to this murder. Can you go help me? These niggas is running wild. Can you please help me? Because these niggas is running wild. You see, Silas, he got all the bitches in there. He got the mulatto bitches in there.
Revolutionary salute to our brother Big AJ for the donation to the war chest. Revolution is a way of life. Absolutely appreciate the love, family. Salute to you.
He chilling. He like, oh shit, I got the white bitch coming through. Also, he had all the bitches at this time. And she like, yeah, you want to help me? Yeah, man, yeah, bitch, let me write this letter real quick, bitch. I'm gonna help you out real quick. Marry me, bitch. No, Silas, no. This bitch say, you ain't gonna marry me, bitch? What if I horse whip your ass then, bitch? What if I do that? What you gonna do about that? What about that? What if I do that? What you gonna do then? And this is where the bitch is like, oh yeah, well if you do that shit, nigga, I'm finna flail all over this motherfucker. I'm finna, ooh! Like, nah, bitch, you don't understand. After I horse whip you, you finna be my bitch, right? You see all them niggas outside? Those are my niggas. I'm finna build a whole empire full of these niggas. And you gonna be my queen. What you think about that? She's like, no, Silas. No. Nah, look at all them niggas outside. I'll let you run the street now. If you ain't trying to marry me, bitch, I just let you out here in these streets with these niggas now. Damn, let me smell your shirt, bitch. That shit smell good. Damn, he's a sweet smelling bitch. Stop it, Silas. This is straight flailing. Like, nah, come here and sit on my lap, bitch. She's like, no. Uh-oh. Here come the clan. Nigga Silas like, bitch, you better come here, bitch. No! Here come the clan. Oh, shit. Y'all gonna make it in time before Silas horsewhips the, makes her his wife? Or the sets her outside, loose on the niggas, or sets the niggas loose on her? Whoa. Oh, shit. Oh, bitch. Oh, shit. Her daddy at the door. Oh, fuck. That's her daddy right there? Oh, shit. He at the door right now? What he doing here? All the niggas outside, he here right now. He probably needs some help. Hold on. What am I gonna do with this right here? Put this in the back room. No. Put this in the back room. Hey, y'all tell this to shut the fuck up. I'm about to go in here and handle this real quick. There's daddy outside. What's up, my nigga? Like, what's going on in here? Hey, nah, shit. I was asleep, my nigga. I was asleep. I want to marry a white woman. Okay, that's cool. That's what's up. Even with all these niggas at your back, you still want to do that? Yeah. And the white girl I want to marry is your daughter. Hold on, nigga. Hold on, nigga. You get the out of my face. Just cause I hang out with niggas sometimes and I might do some nice things for niggas. You can't, no. You are too much nigger for my daughter. The town is given over to crazy niggas brought in by Lynch and Stallman to overawe the whites. You're just another nigga looking to overawe a white, and that white just happens to be my daughter, and I'm not taking it. It's going down. Elsie done woke up. Oh, come here. There's a crazy nigger in here, Silas. And here come the Klan. And the Klan comes and saves the day. And then there's some niggas attacking some innocent white people in the cabin, and the Klan comes and they save these people too. They save the entire white town has been saved from the mangy, wild Negroes who have run amok. The town has been saved thanks to the Ku Klux Klan. Niggas is like, well, hey, it's time to go vote. Hey, it's time to go vote. Oh, look at them white boys over there with them guns and them horses. Oh, I guess we better get out of here. We better go on home. Them white boys ain't playing. That's the Klan right there. Then Elsie marries the one nigga who's in the Klan, and they live happily ever after. They'll say that this movie is part history. Black people were run amok, harassing white people, slapping them in the streets, all kinds of shit, apparently. There's not a lot of documentation about this era in history, but apparently it happened. And this is the movie they caused the resurge in Klan popularity. I'm just in love. Quote, in the decade immediately preceding World War I, a pattern of racial violence began to emerge in which white mob assaults were directed against entire black communities. These race riots were the product of white society's desire to maintain its superiority over blacks, vent its frustrations in the time of distress, and attack those least able to defend themselves. In these race riots, white mobs invaded black neighborhoods, beat and killed large numbers of blacks, and destroyed black property. In most instances, blacks fought back, and there were many casualties on both sides, though most of the dead were black. Gunnar Myrdal opposed the use of the term riots used to describe these interracial conflicts. He preferred to call this phenomena a terrorization or massacre and considered it a magnified or mass lynching. Race riots occurred in both the North and the South, but were more characteristic of the North. They were primarily urban phenomena, while lynching was primarily a rural phenomenon. Although lynchings were decreasing slightly by the turn of the century, race riots were perceptibly on the increase. Large-scale interracial violence became almost epidemic as increasing numbers of blacks migrated to northern cities. The greatest number of race riots occurred during and just after World War I. During this period, the North was concerned with the tremendous migration of blacks from the South and the displacement of some whites by blacks in jobs and residences, which escalated social tensions between the races. The South was concerned about the possible demands of returning Negro soldiers who were unwilling to slip quietly back into second-class citizenship. The summer of 1919, called the Red Summer by James Weldon Johnson, ushered in the greatest period of interracial violence the nation had ever witnessed. During that summer, there were 26 race riots in such cities as Chicago, Washington, D.C., Elaine, Arkansas, Charleston, South Carolina, Knoxville and Nashville, Tennessee, Longville, Texas, and Omaha, Nebraska. Damn, it was wilding in Omaha? More than 100 blacks were killed in these riots, and thousands were wounded and left homeless. The 7 most serious race riots were those which occurred in Wilmington, North Carolina in 1898, Atlanta, Georgia in 1906, Springfield, Illinois in 1908, East St. Louis in 1917, Chicago in 1919, Tulsa, Oklahoma in 1921, and Detroit, Michigan in 1943. What follows is a brief summary of the facts concerning each riot. Just before the turn of the century in November 1898, Wilmington, North Carolina exploded in the first major race riot since Reconstruction. The Wilmington riot followed an impassioned election campaign in which intimidation and fraud brought in a white supremacist government. Plans were drawn up before the election to coerce the black voters and workers and to expel the editor of the black newspaper. 2 days after the election, as whites began to execute their plan, the riot flamed. About 30 blacks were killed in the massacre, and many left the city. The white mob suffered no casualties. One of the South's most sensational riots occurred in Atlanta, Georgia, in September 1906. For months, the city had been lashed into a fury of race hatred by a movement to disenfranchise blacks. The Atlanta press had begun to treat black crime, especially assault and rape, in an inflammatory fashion. 12 rapes of white women were reported in 1 week, giving the impression that there was an epidemic of black rape. It's always rape. I swear it is. It's always rape. 12 rapes of white women were reported in 1 week, giving the impression that there was an epidemic of black rape. This touched off a riot. White mobs meeting ineffective resistance by police, murdered blacks, destroyed and looted their homes and businesses. Blacks attempted to resist, but were outnumbered. Some blacks were arrested for arming themselves in self-defense. When the 4 days of the rioting ended, 10 blacks and 2 whites were dead. Hundreds were injured, and over 1,000 fled the city. In Springfield, Illinois, during August 1908, a 3-day riot took place initiated by a white woman's claim of violation by a Negro. Why doesn't that surprise anybody?
It was a nigger.
Inflamed by the newspaper's sensationalism, crowds of whites gathered around the jail, demanding that the Negro who had been arrested and imprisoned be lynched. When the sheriff transferred the accused and another Negro to a jail in a nearby town, white mobs headed for the Negro section and attacked homes and businesses. 2 blacks were lynched and others were dragged from their houses and streetcars and beaten. By the time the National Guardsmen reached the scene, 6 persons were dead, 4 whites and 2 Negroes. What? 4 whites and 2 Negroes? You mean actually the dead whites outnumbered the Negroes? This riot in the hometown of Abraham Lincoln shocked white liberals who met the following year in New York City with several prominent blacks to form the NAACP. So they're saying that this riot in Springfield, Illinois led to the creation of the NAACP. Think about that.
Boule swooped in. They ain't killed nobody.
Continuing, the East St. Louis, Illinois riot in 1917 was touched off by the fear of white working men that Negro advances in economic, political, and social status were threatening their own status. All these niggas is getting too highfalutin. All right? If these niggers get stuff, what happens to our stuff? This nigger's got a nicer house than me, and I don't like it. When the labor force of an aluminum plant went on strike in April, the company hired Negro workers. Nigga scabs. Although the strike was crushed by a combination of militia injunctions and both black and white strike breakers, the union blamed its defeat on the blacks. A union meeting in May demanded that East St. Louis must remain a white man's town. A riot followed, sparked by a white man, during which mobs demolished buildings and blacks were attacked and beaten. Policemen did little more than take the injured to hospitals and disarm Negroes. Harassments and beatings continued through June. On July 1st, some whites in a Ford drove through the main Negro district, shooting into homes. Blacks armed themselves. When a police car, also a Ford, drove down the street to investigate, the blacks fired on it, killing 2 policemen. Okay, that's what they say. The next day, as reports of the shooting spread, a new riot began. Streetcars were stopped, blacks were pulled off, stoned, clubbed, kicked out, and shot. Other rioters set fire to black homes. By midnight, the black section was in flames, and blacks were fleeing the city. The official casualty figures were 9 whites and 39 blacks, hundreds wounded. But the NAACP investigators estimated that between 100 and 200 blacks were killed. Over 300 buildings were destroyed. Continuing, the worst of the post-war race riots took place in Chicago, Illinois. It began in late July 1919 when a young black encroached upon a swimming area that whites had marked off for themselves and was stoned until he drowned. By the time the riot ended 13 days later, thousands of both races had been involved in a series of frays. 15 whites and 23 Negroes were killed, and 178 whites and 342 blacks were injured. More than 1,000 families, mostly blacks, were left homeless due to the burnings and general destruction of property. The Tulsa, Oklahoma riot took place from May 1931 to June 1921. A white girl charged a black youth with attempted rape in an elevator in a public building. Of course.
He was a nigger.
The youth was arrested and imprisoned. Armed blacks came to the jail to protect the accused youth, who it was rumored would be lynched. Altercations between whites and blacks at the jail led to a race war. A mob numbering more than 10,000 attacked the black district. Machine guns were brought in to use. 8 airplanes were employed to spy on the movements of Negroes, and according to some, were used in bombing the colored section. 4 companies of the National Guard were called out, but by the time order was restored, 50 whites and between 150 and 200 blacks were killed. Many homes were looted and $1.5 million worth of property was destroyed by fire. The riot in Detroit, Michigan in 1943 flared from the increased racial friction over the sharp rise in the Negro population, which led to competition with whites on the job and housing markets. On June 20th, rioting broke out on Belle Isle, a recreation area used by both races, but predominantly by Negroes. Fistfights escalated into a major conflict. The first wave of looting and bloodshed began in the Black Ghetto, Paradise Valley, and later spread to other sections of the city. White mobs attacked blacks in the downtown area and traveled into black neighborhoods by car, where they were met by sniping. Before the time the federal troops arrived to halt the riot, 25 blacks and 9 whites were killed, and property damage exceeded $2 million. Race riots were caused by a great number of social, political, and economic factors. Joseph Boskin, author of Urban Racial Violence, observed that there were certain general patterns in the major 20th century race riots. 1. In each of the race riots, with few exceptions, it was white people that sparked the incident by attacking black people. 2. In the majority of the riots, some extraordinary social condition prevailed at the time of the riot. Pre-war social changes, wartime mobility, post-war adjustment, or economic depression. 3. The majority of the riots occurred during the hot summer months. I know we always hear the rumors when it gets hot outside, niggas get crazy. Here's an example. Number 4. Rumor played an extremely important role in causing many riots. Yes, the rumor of the white girl being raped by a black guy. Rumors of some criminal activity by blacks against whites perpetrated the actions of white mobs. Number 5, the police force, more than any other institution, was invariably involved as a participating cause or perpetrating factor in the riots. In almost every one of the riots, the police sided with the attackers, either by actually participating in or by failing to quell the attack. These riots indeed were perpetrated by the police, and these rioters were protected by the police. Number 6, in almost every instance, the fighting occurred within the black community. Yes, whites knew they could go to the black community to start bullshit, as opposed to the blacks going into the white community to start bullshit. For one, white people could be the aggressors, and blacks could not be the aggressors. They could only defend themselves. End quote. The Negro Holocaust, Lynching and Race Riots in the United States, 1880 to 1950, by Albert A. Gibson. End quote. After the grandiose popularity of the movie, the KKK rose again on top of Stone Mountain, Georgia. The movie is credited with this resurgence. William Joseph Simmons would take the reins as the new Imperial Wizard of the new KKK 2.0 reboot. Over the next decade, the membership of the Klan would jump by hundreds of thousands to millions of new members, hitting its peak around 1925, during the same time as the New Negro movement. Simmons, however, was booted out of the Klan in 1922 and tried to form his own faction called the Knights of the Flaming Sword, looking to siphon his membership from the existing Klan body, after feeling he got cheated out of his position by the new leadership, particularly Hiram Evans, a 32nd degree Freemason and a member of the York and Scottish Rite. Hiram Evans had a long history of terroristic abominations, torturous tirades, and Rh negative behavior. He had been killing Jits since he was a Jit. He was no doubt responsible for an unaccounted number of murders, yet he was the most significant leader in KKK history. Membership under his hood counted in the millions. In July 1923, his face was printed on the cover of Time magazine. His goal was to rebrand the Klan. From the bloodthirsty barbarians of the late 1800s to the family-friendly Aryans of the 1920s. He would not promote violence against minorities in public and emphasize that the old ways of the Klan are done. But privately, he intensely promoted violence against colored people, but also promoted politics by fundraising for Klan members to run for public office. But by this time, the Klan was giving away money to Republicans, which is a complete political change of face. But it wasn't just the Klan changing face, it was American politics overall. Now the Klan is supporting Republicans like Calvin Coolidge, and the Democrats distanced themselves. The Klan rode high in the early to mid 1920s, but this was as high as they would ever ride. Inevitably, they would shrivel because it was in their anatomical nature. Something else inherent in their nature was hypocrisy. For as Christian and morally upright as the Klan claimed to be, under the hood, they were corrupt, murderous, rapist scumbags. And they couldn't hide that fact under a million hoods. Grand Dragon of the Indiana Klan unhooded himself when he raped and murdered Madge Oberholzer. She died after a staph infection she suffered as a result of deep bite wounds made by Stevenson during her drugging by alcohol, abduction, and rape. Stevenson was convicted of second-degree murder. He had expected to use his influence with the Klan and political connections to escape his fate. But when that didn't work, he spilled the beans on all of his corrupt associates, which led to multiple indictments, including the Republican governor, Edward Jackson. Snitch ass nigga. This court case caught national headlines and was the primary reason for the mass exodus of Klan members, not just from Indiana, where nearly 200,000 left, but much of the entire American membership ghosted the Klan after the murder conviction of Wizard D.C. Stevenson. At the trial, the prosecutor decreed Stevenson as a destroyer of virtue and womanhood. That's ironic, don't you think? When it comes to the influence of the Freemasons over this era, it was everywhere, on both sides of the conflict that split the country. Many of the top Klansmen were Freemasons, and most of the top colored men were also Freemasons. In a conservative estimate, at least 1/2 to 2/3 of the colored men elected to office in the South were Freemasons. And most of those men had been elevated to prominence through the church. But at this time, white Masons didn't recognize colored Masons, who were usually Prince Hall. So the Freemasonic umbrella didn't keep colored Masons from getting harassed by white Masons in the South, especially if those white Masons were members of the Ku Klux Klan. For as much as the Klan did to suppress the Black Republican vote throughout their heyday, at the height of their popularity, they decided to flip tickets. But at this point, it didn't matter anymore, because the Negroes had already started leaving the Republican Party, especially after white terrorist insurgents in the South, like the White League and the Red Shirts, started murdering colored voters before the 1874 election. In Mississippi, one of the states with the highest population of so-called blacks, the Red Shirts killed hundreds of colored voters before the election. By 1877, the military had completely withdrawn from the state. As a consequence, colored voters had no more protection from the federal government. Mississippi quickly ratified their state constitution to exclude colored people from office and to set up restrictive barriers to keep them from voting, such as literacy tests and poll taxes. A similar situation had also developed in South Carolina. These were the changes that officially made segregation the law of the land. And these changes were violently enforced by Democrats. And the conditions would stay this way for almost a century. And ironically, it would also be a Democrat, Lyndon B. Johnson, who would end this forced segregation in the South. But did Johnson really even like Negroes? Or did he integrate them into a burning house? On the next episode of Boule, The Burning House.
Today on the Vince Everett Ellison Show. Man, I've been getting some very, very interesting comments regarding my commentary on Martin Luther King Jr. And I'm going to answer some of the questions people have regarding him and why I am coming for Dr. King like I am. So we're going to talk about the comments, some of the questions people have had about me and Dr. King today on the Vince Everett Ellison Show. All right, let's get this thing started. You know, it was the great Eleanor Roosevelt who said, no one can make you feel inferior without your consent. And think about that, y'all. No one can make you feel inferior without your consent. This was a relatively unattractive white lady, turn of the century, became First Lady of the United States of America, and she's talking to people, telling them, nobody can make me feel inferior. I'm a woman, and I walk harder than any man has ever walked in this country, and Eleanor Roosevelt did. And you will give that statement to Black Americans, and they'll say, she don't know what she's talking about. She don't know. People force you to feel inferior. You ain't got no choice but to feel inferior. Their minds are too clouded and too reprobate, and they are too demoralized to even understand what Eleanor Roosevelt is talking about. And it is so true. Our Bible says, as a man thinketh, so is he. That means if you think you're inferior, you are inferior. If you don't, you're not. This is always this question. There's people say, how can a bumblebee fly? Why does a bumblebee fly? Because everything about him says he shouldn't be able to fly. His wings are too short. His butt is too fat. He is aeronautically, the bumblebee should not be able to fly in any shape, form, or fashion. He is a natural phenomenon. But guess what he does? He flies. You know why he flies? Because he saw his mom and daddy do it, and nobody told him that he couldn't. We look at our parents, we look at our peers around us, and forget what they say. We watch what they do. 90% of all communication is nonverbal. And when the people around you that look like you and act like you and that you look at to emulate and you look at to give you advice and you look at and say, this is who I get all of my instruction from, when they by action and by deed say that you're inferior and that they're inferior, you buy it. Doesn't matter what nobody else says. But if the opposite is true, if by deed and by action, they say that you are not inferior, that you are superior, no matter what nobody else says, you believe that too. This is why we get back to Martin Luther King Jr. and the sanitizing of our Black past. Every time we say that we're not responsible for our past, we tell people that we're inferior, that we were animals, that we were beasts, that we didn't have the ability to make decisions, that somebody else controlled us. Even our Bible, when they talks about the children of Israel and when they would fall away from God and be punished because they were sinful, they would always take responsibility. I remember watching this movie, The Kingdom of Heaven. It was about the Christians taking back the city of Jerusalem and the Muslims coming to take it. The Christians took it back from the Muslims, and now the Muslims were coming to take it back. And the leader of the Muslims was Saladin. Saladin was a great general, and they were surrounding Jerusalem. Their intention was to take it back. And one of Saladin's lieutenants told Saladin, he said, "We lost Jerusalem because we were sinful." Saladin said, "No, we lost Jerusalem because we were unprepared." See that? This one guy was going to sanitize their history. And with his explanation of their loss of Jerusalem, they would have kept losing Jerusalem over and over and over and over again, because the sinfulness of them was the reason why they lost it. Saladin said, we lost because we were unprepared. And Saladin says, we're not going to sanitize history. We're going to tell the truth about it. We were unprepared militarily, and the Christians kicked our behind. Not going to happen again. This is Black people in America right now with us talking about our history. We're always trying to sanitize it, say it was something that it was not. We had no control during slavery. We had no control during Jim Crow. It was white intimidation. There was too many white folks. There were 3 times more Black men in South Carolina than white men. So how did they subdue us? Coward. We were cowards. Black men were cowards. 2 times more in Mississippi. How did they subdue us? They were cowards. They came up with the Mississippi and the South Carolina plans. They're part of history, and they control Black men, beat them down. They still do it. Still control you ignorant behind Democrats. Bunch of slackers, liars, and ne'er-do-wells. Listen to a bunch of punk behind Black preachers who ain't no count. Same thing. Variation on the theme. And Martin Luther King Jr. was not the beginning of this. He's just taken and wrapped it up. So a lot of people have been asking me questions and commenting on my content regarding Dr. King. I'd like to talk about some of it. And the one that I get more than anything is when the people are angry at me. Or when they throw out this, you ought to be ashamed of yourself talking about Dr. King like that. You wouldn't have nothing without Martin Luther King. I stop him right there. I said, I wouldn't have nothing without Martin Luther King. No, you wouldn't have nothing. I said, you just put Martin Luther King Jr. in the place of God. Because from what my Bible tells me, God provides me everything. Everything. It didn't say some things. It says everything. And you just told me without Martin Luther King Jr., I'd have nothing. Let me tell you something. Ain't no amount of marching and fighting and burning up stuff got me what I have. If Jesus Christ has ordained something for me, there is no one that can stop it. And so you're saying that I got to go through Martin Luther King to get what I want to, or to go to someone else? No, you're wrong, brother. That's why you don't have anything. Because you believe that everything I have comes through a dead man. Stupid statement, stupid person. And I know what I've just said right now is going over your head, and you're going to try to argue your way out of that one, because most of these people are just too stupid to understand and hear the truth. They're too demoralized. They're too beaten down within their souls to understand the truth. So maybe this is for somebody else who wants to hear the truth, because I know this. The people that wrote me that, not going to hear anything I say. All right, another one. Well, Dr. King gave us the right to vote. Try again. Black men got the right to vote with the 15th Amendment in 1870. Black women got the right to vote with the 19th Amendment in 1920. Now, the 15th Amendment gave us the right to vote, black men the right to vote. How did Dr. King give us the right to vote? Takes as much time as you need. Well, the white man was keeping us from voting. Okay, then. So what would the white men have done if we tried to keep them from voting? They got their guns. Why didn't you get yours? Dr. King didn't give you the right to vote. You finally decided to exercise your right to vote. What you did do, though, as most cowards did do, you called the federal government down and told them to guarantee your right to vote because you yourself didn't have the courage to do it. And when they removed the 1965 Voting Rights Act, everybody went crazy. Oh, no, they're going to take away our right to vote. Still cowards. Still cowards. You had the right to vote all along. You're just too cowardly to use it. King didn't give you the right to vote. You just decided to exercise it finally in your life. Stop being the coward that you were. You kept your own self from voting. And that's the sadness of it. Instead of King telling you to ante up like men, stand up and walk out there and vote, throw your shoulders back, act as men, told you to lie down and get the hell beat out you and call the federal government down, your daddy, to come down and protect you because you weren't man enough to protect yourself. And you call that a victory? To have yourself castrated in front of the world, you call that a victory? Shows how reprobate your mind is. I can't protect myself, so I got to call down the feds to protect me from the all-powerful white man that won't let me vote. Well, why don't you do something about it? I scared, boss. I scared. So then they say ending segregation was good. Look, let me tell you something about segregation. I was not a fan of segregation, never said we should have it. Legal segregation is wrong. But something that's equally as wrong is forced integration. We were fighting for desegregation. That is, to allow people to go where they want to go, and if they don't want to go there, don't go there. Don't be forcing people to do anything. Martin Luther King Jr. wanted forced integration. That means going to Washington, D.C., getting a law passed, and using a gun. And it has not worked. People found ways around it every time. Moving into gated communities, getting bigger pieces of private property, having private clubs, all these things were justified by the Supreme Court. So all of that marching, all of that singing just gave people who wanted to stay away the right to stay away. Didn't change a thing. America is as segregated now as it ever has been. So no, King didn't end segregation. All he did was put a fake law on the books that said that you couldn't discriminate or segregate. And guess what? People did it anyway. And the law is unenforceable because you cannot prove why somebody didn't give you a job, and you cannot prove why somebody doesn't want to live beside you unless they tell you, and people are too smart to do it now. So there it is. It did nothing. It just made people be quiet about why they were doing what they were doing, but they're still doing it. The numbers prove it to be true. So people say, well, King was a communist. What's wrong with being a communist? Yeah, we got a long ways to go if you don't know what's wrong with being a communist. Number one, communists are atheists. They're atheists. They don't believe in God. I think that should be enough by itself. They are not going to compete with God for power. And their job is, and their goal is, to have an atheist country where God does not exist. In Cuba, when Castro and Che took over, they brought in atheism. Don't get it mistaken, baby. No, no, no. There's no religion in Cuba. Soviet Russia, same thing. China, same thing. So that's number one. So if King was a communist, that means he was I'm sorry, he was an atheist. Get this in your stupid head, your thick skull. If he was a communist, he was also an atheist. And he said in his writings he didn't believe in the deity of Christ. He didn't believe in the virgin birth. He didn't believe in the resurrection. He didn't believe in hell. So it coincides with his communism. He didn't believe in Christ. And he goes into the church and lies about who he was. I'm a reverend. I'm a Baptist minister. No, he wasn't. He was a politician. And then the second thing about communism. Do you know communism takes away all your private property? Now, I know you brothers like your cars. You like your cars more than anything. They're going to take them. If you got a house, they're going to take it. If you got too much jewelry, and I know you love your jewelry, they're going to take it. No private property. Y'all going to wear the same thing. You're going to live in the same houses.
He on about some stuff. He off about a lot. You know, I don't agree with everything he's saying. But see, this the anti-communist message is one that the government just wanted to push. They just fucked up when they took TikTok away and people start going to Red Note and other places and seeing that it's absolutely a lie to say that if you're a communist, you don't own property. People in China own property. You know who don't own property? Us in America. You don't own shit. And anybody who have property, you know you pay taxes on it forever. And if you ever in your life stop paying your taxes, they're going to take your shit. So when that's like a propaganda thing. Don't get into the communist democracy shit because they living great over there in China and they owning shit. We living like slaves here up under this great democracy and economic freedom.
Y'all gonna drive the same old piece of cars and y'all gonna eat the same foods. No variety. That's the system you stupid jokers are asking for. That's what's wrong with being a communist. You have no freedom to assemble. So y'all like to go to the club and get down, go to the strip club. Yeah, that's over with. No freedom to assemble. No freedom of speech. So all y'all want to go out there and talk trash and do hip hop. Now, that might be good for a lot of y'all. All that's gone. That's the system that you're asking for. So keep on asking for it. You just might get it. Some people even say they're glad he wasn't a Christian. Glad he was a hoe chaser. That made them like him more. To you people, I got nothing to say to you. You're reprobate, you're terrible, and I'm glad that you're owning your own because y'all know who King was. Y'all like him that way, and y'all saying, I'm glad that he's been outed as being one of us, the satanic, the cruel, the mean, the Democrat. So you people that are saying we're applauding the fact that King was a homemonger, a hoe chaser, an adulterer, a communist. Yeah. On your own. You're right. Accept him. He's part of your clique. And people said that you can be flawed and do great things. I agree with that. Yeah, you can be flawed and do great things. Hell, there's never been a man that did great things that weren't flawed. Nobody's arguing that point. But King wasn't flawed. He was a plant. He wasn't a guy that was a Christian, that wasn't a true blue patriot and an American that was trying to do great things. No, King was a plant. King was a communist that came in and lied to people and came in and tried to stir up and destroy the country undercover. They came in and debased the black community and the black church undercover. So he wasn't just a guy that was out there doing things that were trying to help people and he just screwed up every now and again, as we all do. It's different when you see the guy's an active traitor. when you see that a guy is actively lying, when you see a guy that is actively not who he says that he is, if you can't see that, something's wrong with you. It's the person actively lying to you about his intentions every single solitary day. This is the difference between there's a difference between that and a person that screws up every now and then, takes a drink, slips up, has an affair. That's different. And they said, what if my sins were shown to the world? Would I be able to survive it? Oh, probably not. I mean, no, I don't think no one could if their sins were shown to the world. Well, that's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about just embarrassing Martin Luther King Jr. and showing his sins to the world because we just want to embarrass him. It's the difference between sins and crimes. You know, taking a drink, having an affair, lying. That's one thing. But to show that you're an active traitor to the United States of America, to show that you are actually saying that you are a minister of the gospel of Jesus Christ, but you're actually an atheist. Taking the black church and you're intentionally making it apostate and turning it over to a Marxist, communist, atheist organization. Yeah, this is different. I mean, I don't care if they keep Martin Luther King Jr.'s sex tapes out. Those are irrelevant to the conversation, for as I'm concerned. No, but the fact that he was a fake preacher, that he's a stone cold communist and a traitor to the United States of America, I think those are the things that we should be focusing on and we should be talking about, and to show that his ideology and his philosophy has destroyed Black America. Those are the important things. And then there are people say, I don't trust the FBI. Well, that's your prerogative. I don't know anything the FBI has ever done to you. I mean, the FBI ain't never done nothing to me for me to distrust them. You know, J. Edgar Hoover, they try to say he was a racist. I don't see any evidence.
He was, and just see, he picking and choosing. They don't trust the FBI when they was harassing Trump, but he trusts the FBI when they harassing the civil rights people and the Panthers and all that. That's nonsense. The FBI is a crooked organization. They've been crooked and they've been harassing and targeting American citizens from the 60s to right now with President Trump. You gotta be truthful in that fact. The FBI have been a disgusting, bigoted organization.
Evidence of that. I know that Hoover didn't like Martin Luther King Jr., but I think he had good reasons for not liking King. I mean, J. Edgar Hoover knew Whitney Young. He knew Roy Wilkins from the NAACP. He knew James Farmer from CORE, and he respected them all. He met with them, talked to them, and respected all of them.
Absolutely.
But he had a real disdain for Martin Luther King Jr., and you know why. Because Hoover had heard the tapes, and he knew that the rest of these guys were clean, and he knew that Martin Luther King Jr. was a hypocrite and a liar. Now tell me, you hear tapes of a guy having orgies with 20 people, or tapes of a guy raping women, tapes of a guy with prostitutes, tapes of a guy drunk and cussing with outside children, and then he don't know he's this way. He gonna walk up.
That sounds like Kennedy. That sounds like President Kennedy. See, that's why I'm not for they trying to use that against. See, the problem with the Black community, when they deify King, they set themselves up for when the tapes is released showing that King was sleeping around and all that, which we knew, his wife knew, but since they treated him like he was Jesus, Black people are shocked to hear some of the stuff Dr. King was doing. Well, he should have never deified a man. Should have just said, hey, he was a man, he did some wrong things like he said, but then he tried to get it right at the end. They assassinated him because he did try to get it right. He absolutely did at one point in his life try to get it right. When he said, I feel like I led my people to the burning bush, he knew he was wrong. But to pretend like, well, that he was doing anything less than what the Kennedys was doing, that's preposterous. He was doing nothing less than the rest of the people who was having money and was famous all over world-renowned all over the goddamn world.
up to you and act like he's somebody
They just
that's
shouldn't
holier than
deify him.
thou.
That was the
And
problem.
you think that J. Edgar Hoover's not going to look at him with disdain? He wouldn't be a man of virtue at all if he didn't. I think that more than anything shows you that Hoover was a virtuous man, because he looked at Martin Luther King Jr. and said, I can't stand it. Look at it. Walking around here strutting, acting like, lying about him being this and being that, and we know he's nothing but a liar. And people are going to be surprised that J. Edgar Hoover held Martin Luther King Jr. in complete contempt. Hell, you should hold him in contempt. Hoover knew who he was. So how was Hoover supposed to react to Martin Luther King Jr. when asked about him? What's he supposed to say? Oh, King's a great guy. King's a great leader. Oh, he's supposed to say Martin Luther King Jr. ain't what but tell you who he is. Lied to me, lied to the president, lied to Bobby Kennedy, hanging out with a bunch of communists. It's a pervert of the highest order. So people are going to say, J. Edgar Hoover is a racist because he didn't like Dr. King. J. Edgar Hoover was a human being because he didn't like Dr. Martin Luther King. A human being. Because any human being that heard what J. Edgar Hoover heard and knew what J. Edgar Hoover knew about Martin Luther King Jr. and did like him got a problem. And you know what? Here's one thing. People always say that what J. Edgar Hoover did was against the law, illegal wiretaps, illegal this, illegal that. How many people's gone to jail? People told me, what Hoover did was illegal. What Hoover did was wrong. It should be all burned up because it was illegal. Well, how come nobody going to jail for it?
See, that's a lot.
How many people's going to
Plenty
jail?
of Panthers went to jail for his illegal wiretaps. Plenty of Americans went to jail for J. Edgar Hoover's illegal wiretaps, and plenty of people was assassinated like Fred Hampton over that type of nonsense.
Right, zero. Not one. Because it wasn't illegal. King had lied to the president. Hoover had some wiretaps set up looking for communist spies. King showed up with a group of communist spies after he told the president of the United States of America, the president, he was going to cut the guys loose. He took the pictures of Bobby Kennedy and said, I thought this guy was supposed to be cutting these communists loose. And Bobby Kennedy said, he lied to me. And Bobby Kennedy, according to the law, authorized the wiretaps. J. Edgar Hoover never put a wiretap on Martin Luther King Jr. Bobby Kennedy did not authorize. And when Katzenbach, who was Attorney General under told him to take him down, he took him down. After 1965, Martin Luther King Jr. wasn't wiretapped any longer. The FBI would infiltrate and follow him, but the wiretaps are gone. They didn't know about his shenanigans at the Lorraine Motel that night because he wasn't wiretapped anymore.
Yeah, they had the black.
After Johnson was done with him, he was done with him. So no one is going to jail for any of this, which means it was all legal. None of it was illegal. But you know what? Here's the last one. I've had people send me comments, I don't care what you say about Martin Luther King Jr. He was a great American. I love him. And I'll never take his picture off my wall. And there it is. There it is. That's the Stockholm Syndrome, and that's the cognitive dissonance. No matter what he does, no matter what I show you, that's the person that's demoralized. They admit to it. It's nothing I can say. It's nothing I can show them. Nothing. I mean, not just the stuff that I have shown them. It's nothing that I can show them. It's almost like what I said about Jesus Christ. You've given this man the power of Christ. It is nothing you can tell me to turn me away from Christ. Nothing. They say stuff you can tell me to turn me away from Martin Luther King Jr. Nothing. They put him over Christ. That is the danger of this cult of personality, y'all.
They definitely did.
That's the danger of it. But I recognize what's going on here. Like I told y'all, I got a big brain. And I see things differently than other people. I know exactly what's going to happen with the black community when these tapes come out. Oh boy, these tapes going to come out. And I'm going to say like I always said, I'm going to say, I told you, I told you, I told you, I told you, I told you. Y'all been talking about me for the last two and a half years since I put out, last 2 years since I put out my documentary, We Go to Hell For Me, and I told you about who Martin Luther King Jr. was. Oh, boy, they've been lighting me up. Some people are thanking me. I'm going to tell you the truth. More people have thanked me than been mad at us. Yeah, I'm serious. It's 50-1. Most people come and say, thank you, Mr. Ellison, because they check behind what I've said, and they see that it's true. And then they look at the condition of Black America and say, it all makes sense now. Thank you. I've gotten so many letters that just say, thank you for telling me what happened. I was wondering why we were in such bad shape. Now I know. Thank you. But then they're the ones that are going to go through these 5 stages of grief. And the first stage is the one that a lot of people are going through right now. You know what that is? Denial. Like an old person used to tell me, denial ain't just a river in Africa. You're going through the stage of denial. And you have to go through that. And then once you go through denial, you're going to go through anger. Some people are already in anger. Just anger. Mad. No, I ain't going to believe that. No. Hate the FBI. Then people are going to be bargaining. Some people are already doing that by saying, well, what if the FBI is lying? Or what if they're wrong? Or what if they doctored the tapes? Or what if this is the KGB plan? Or what is it? What is it? That's bargaining, you know. And then there's depression. They're going to just sit down and just be sad about it. So, oh, man. We've been made a fool of. They've been lying to us for the last 50, 60 years. We've been following behind a buffoon and a pervert and a liar. Oh, man, I feel so bad. They're going to be drinking liquor. They're going to be, some people going to blow their brains out. They're going to be able to take it. They just not going to be able to take it. They're going to lay around in a depression. They're going to just give up on the world. They're going to go to they're going to go to the king statue and lay down in sackcloth and ashes and just go, And then it's going to be the last stage. And I hope I'll be around long enough to see it. And that's going to be acceptance. Because Martin Luther King Jr. was a communist. Martin Luther King Jr. was a pervert. Martin Luther King Jr. was an anti-Christian bigot. Martin Luther King Jr. was a liar. And Martin Luther King Jr. was a traitor to our country. It's time for us to put him exactly what he deserved. Same as the Soviet Union did Stalin. De-Stalinization. De-MLKization. It's time for us to start talking the truth, teaching the truth. And then once we stop sanitizing our past, stop lying about our past, stop lying about our leaders, stop lying about the reasons why we failed, we can start building a better country, because most of the problems that are had in America right now come from the Black community. Most of the crime, most of the poverty, most of the early deaths, all of it. We correct this part of American society. We correct most of America. Trillions of dollars spent every year just to hold up these people that will not work, will not take care of their children. So many problems can be solved, and we just solve the problems in the Black community, but we cannot solve it until we deal with this.
It's stuff. You shining little shoes now, brother. See, they start writing you around, you know, and now you shining shoes with that big brother. You know, we ain't created most of the goddamn problems in America, brother. That's not true. Stop that lying now, brother. Get off your knees.
Capitalize off Black skin, Black suffering, Black pain to try to make themselves relevant.
Critical inflection point in America, and the moment cannot be more urgent. With Black history under attack and white supremacy emboldened, there is no better time to introduce this bill than during Black History Month, a time when we reflect on our history, our struggle, and our collective power. And I'll say, it is also not only about Black history, but it is about Black futures. More than 4 centuries ago, Africans were kidnapped, trafficked, and enslaved, forced to build this country under horrific brutality, an economy which we still benefit from today. Rice, sugar, tobacco, cotton. And even after the Civil War, emancipation, and the 13th Amendment, the legacy of slavery endured in other forms, codified in law to deny Black Americans freedom, opportunity, and dignity.
our government, no matter who is in power, has an obligation to right these wrongs, to provide reparations for descendants of enslaved Africans, to eliminate the racial wealth gap, to uplift the Black community. White supremacy is rampant in this country. Just look at the current administration and our own legislative body. They have contributed to the social and economic harms, to racial terror Black folks have experienced in this country. Now, more than ever, we must acknowledge and repair those harms.
We can legislate justice.
It's disgusting, bro. These people were just in power. Why you wait till Trump to get in office to go on y'all reparations campaign? You just had the White House. When we put Biden in power, you had the White House, you had the Senate, and you had the Congress. Now y'all talking about this scam us.
Slate healing. And we're certainly long overdue. And for those that would say we need to just get over it, that's interesting. When as a nation, you are benefiting right now from an economy that was built on the brutalized backs and the indignities and the horrors of chattel slavery and our African ancestors.
Trump been in office 3 weeks. 1, 2, 3 weeks. That's it. Democrats are now talking about white supremacy in the White House. When no white supremacy when Joe Biden was in the White House? Of course there was. Man, if there's white supremacy is a system. It reigns over the entire globe for the most part. Yeah, the entire globe. It don't matter who in office.
Revolutionary salute to our brother Keith Tolliver for the donation to the war chest. Revolution is a way of life. Absolutely appreciate the little family salute.
Systems are broke, just like it don't matter who in office if the government is corrupt, right? The government systems that are corrupt, which are coming to light, which we already knew they were corrupt. You just didn't know to what extent. That supersedes each president because it's baked into the government, right? Right? So this fixation on, Trump's in office and, scary, scary. We need to talk about white supremacy. So the Democratic Party or the party of convenience, conveniently they want to talk Black shit when it don't cost them nothing. When they're out of power, they can't do nothing for you anyway. It's always the person that say they want to help you move after you already moved. Oh, man, damn, man. Wait, you moved last week? Oh, man, I told you. Why you ain't call me? Why you ain't call me, bro? I would have been there. You know how I do. You know I would have been there if you'd have called me. All you had to do was pick up the phone and call me. I'd have been there, man. You did it by yourself? Oh, man. Man, don't tell me you did it by yourself. Man, I don't know if I'm going to be asleep tonight, man, because you did that by yourself. When you know all you had to do was call me. Oh, you told me about it? You already told me. Oh. Wait, tell me. Last month. I don't remember you telling me. Oh, you wrote it down, too, on the, And you text me, too? Oh, okay. Damn, man, I don't know if I got that text. Oh, it's pinned to the top of your profile on all the social media. Oh, man, you know I don't be on social like that. Folks, that's the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party think Black people are stupid. For some of us, they're right. Yeah. Some of us are stuck on stupid because they keep believing the Democratic Party. Yeah. They keep on believing that these people mean to do well by us. When all they do is manipulate Black pain and suffering. See, right now, the Democratic Party's out of power. They can't do nothing for us. And they know it. That's why they're talking about doing something for you, because they can't do nothing for you. We just had an election that they lost, right? So I don't know what they're talking about. But besides all of that, they do nothing but serve to benefit themselves. They didn't get the memo that Black people, I would love to say all of Black America walked away. I would love to say all of Black America has awakened to the fuckery, which is the Democratic Party, but that would be wishful thinking. What I can report to you is that more Black Americans than ever have, and they will continue to do so. And this pathetic, this laughable, but also disgraceful performative gesture will not save them. It will not serve as a tourniquet for the bleeding. They're going to bleed out. Black America, a good portion of Black Americans walked away, and more will continue to do so. Feigning support for Black Americans and where we are and talking about racial wealth gaps at this point. It ain't going to get it. And you know what's bad about it? You can be a Democrat or you can mean well. I don't know what's in the heart of Ayanna Pressley. I don't know what's in the heart of Summer Lee. Them sisters can mean well. Don't matter. You stuck in a party that doesn't. You are part of a machine that does not mean well. Particularly when it comes to Black people and particularly when it comes to reparations. Because if you had any type of, first of all, HR 40 is badly written, poorly designed, needs to be thrown out and a whole new idea put in place. I brought the foremost strategists and thinkers in this field on this show. Dr. Sandy Dirty has been a long time Tim Black Show guest several times. We've been up and down and up and down and up and down this issue of reparations for formerly enslaved. I support it. But see, this type of shit right here with the Democratic Party is precisely why I'm not confined to the reparations discussion. It's why I'm also talking about economics. I'm talking about investment. I'm talking about growth. I'm talking about job performance, job opportunities. I'm talking about training academies. I'm talking about real estate. I'm talking about ownership. I'm talking about small business. I'm talking about entrepreneurship. I'm talking about a number of mechanisms. Besides this, we could talk co-ops. We could talk strategy, community awareness. We could talk about community development. We could talk about enhancements and development through programs, social programs, and community doing for self as well. Some self-sustainability as well. Okay, so it's I'm into a lot of different solutions. But what I am not going to do is I'm not going to allow the Democratic Party to come through and pretend like they're going to do something. To come through and play with the emotions of Black Americans, which is their go-to. And it's disgusting, the amount of people that play into it. I don't mean the average person. I'm talking about people behind the scenes. I'm talking about people that know better, that know what I'm talking about, who know how the Democratic machine gets down. And know if they were serious about this, they could have did this at the top of Joe Biden's administration. If they were serious about this, they weren't. There is no reason why they could have made a real reparations push if that's what they wanted to do. So this, my friends, I was watching something that I was watching a video earlier today. Was my brother, our brother, the iconic Judge Joe Brown. Judge Joe Brown was talking about something, and something caught my eye. And I think it was something to do with the Super Bowl.
You have a story about Samuel L. Jackson.
I'm not going to tell it because he's a nice guy, but it's not him being gay or anything like that. That's got nothing to do with it. But it's his stuff, and he keeps it private, so... It's
nothing private. It was a joke. It was a funny story.
Yeah, but I'm not going to...
friends with him, and anybody could get it. We talk about any and everybody.
Tell it because I respect him for what he does. He's not one of the punks out in Hollywood, but
But he's the other.
What?
But he was acting other, not gay, but
You're talking about Django and the Butler?
Yes.
He does that kind of thing every now and then, so that's on his conscience.
So can we tell the story?
No, I'm not.
You act like it's some big thing.
I'm not going to tell the story.
Now, what I want you to check out is the reason why he says he won't tell the story. And this is where it will explain my reason for playing it.
I'm not going to tell the story. I don't count him an enemy. If he became an enemy, I'd tell the story.
You talk about people who are not your enemy.
Yeah, they're enemies because they support something I detest and despise. Negritude on the plantation.
Well, that's true.
That's it. That's it. He said, "Nah, I ain't gonna talk about Sam Jack. Yeah, he's a good guy. You know, we disagree on some things. We got some differences, but he has not proven himself to be my enemy. So I'm not gonna go there on that brother. Just because he has not done anything where I would consider him an enemy." And when I said, she said, "What do you mean by enemy? You got people that you go after that are enemies." He said, "Well, you don't have to be my enemy." He said, "He does not support something that I despise, such as negritude on the plantation." A lot of the Democratic operatives, the ones that I called out on this show, for instance, these are people that represent they fit the criteria of what Judge Joe Brown is saying here. They are Negroes on the plantation, negritude on the plantation, Black Americans, ninjas locked to the Democratic Party, and even worse, doing their best to usher others in, knowing that place on fire, knowing it's toe down, knowing it don't mean no good, but because it's their career, it's because it's how they get paper. It's going to keep on doing what they do. And look, I understand you got to get your paper, but you are my enemy. You are my enemy for your activity, for you're on the opposite side. You are undermining what we need to go. And this is bigger than our relationship. So, back to this legislation. Back to this bill they want to introduce. Look, I'm not against anybody doing good work. But the Democrats are so far in the hole with Black America, they would need to demonstrate by doing a whole lot of lifting. They had to do a whole lot of lifting to get right. They would have to demonstrate by action what they on. Okay, they would have to demonstrate by action, by putting together their package, working through it, because see, we saw what happened in California. We saw them people, them brothers and sisters down there busting their ass, putting together that work for months and months and months and months. Just to have them sandbagged at the last minute, at the 12th hour, not even bring it up for a vote. With Gavin Newsom to throw everybody under the bus. So that's just what the Democrats do. I have no doubt they'll do the same thing here. I have no doubt. Man, look, anything for the people, the Democrats are going to be against. I remember when Joe Biden said, if we manage to get Medicare for all to the floor and passed, he vetoed it. I can see him, that's the type of Democratic Party you got. If the people want it, it don't matter. It's not what the people want, it's what the party wants. And the last thing I feel the party really wants is to empower Black people. I don't think either one of these parties really want to empower Black people. Yeah, in fact, I know neither one of them wants to do that. That's not on the itinerary. So for this, I do not fall in the camp with the fools. With the fools that say things like, we don't need reparations.
Black Americans do not need reparations. We need different values and better spending habits. Let's think about what she said specifically.
To eliminate the racial wealth gap.
Reparations aren't going to eliminate the wealth gap.
We just need to balance our money better. Man, I know how it is, man. You got a lot of white listeners and white followers, and that Elon Musk retweet felt good, didn't it? Didn't it feel good? You cornball. Jews didn't say that. Jews were like, we don't need no money. They was like, Put it right here. Japanese wasn't like, nah, we don't need no help. We don't need no recompense. We don't need nothing. Nah, we good. They was like, put it right here. Native Americans wasn't like, nah, we good. Nah, bygones be bygones, man. We making more money than we ever made right now. Nah, Native Americans was like, give me this, give me some land, let's get some treaties. Now it takes a certain kind of brother, certain kind of melanated brother, man, certain kind of person to say that black people had their land stolen, had what little bit we was able to meek out, destroyed, stolen by pissed off, angry white folks. And 100 different ways. We ain't just talking about slavery. We talking about Jim Crow, Jane Crow. We talking about church bombings. We talking about literal bombings and floodings of black neighborhoods. Man, I ain't gonna waste time with those people. Talk about what black people need to do, because we just need to get our books right. I mean, people that can barely speak the language got better books, so they just get high more often. See, you goofies. You cannot live your life for likes from people who don't want to see you succeed. They're not clapping because you're right. They're clapping because you're their little puppy dog. So look, guys, and let's be real, guys. Let's be real. The Democratic Party, if they wanted to do anything for Black America, they would already did it when they had the power to do so. It is Johnny come lately. It is very convenient to now stick your chest out and talk tough. And talk all this reparations talk. Talk about what you try and do now. It ain't nothing but a mechanism to try to paint Trump as a bigger racist than they've been already painting him to be. So, nah, we ain't gonna be party to this. You go ahead and do what you're gonna do. Go on over there, Representative Presley, Representative Lee. Y'all go ahead and get to work. Yeah, it was funny. Summer Lee, that's funny. Lot of white supremacists look at this and look at that. There was nothing to look at under Biden. You were in Congress. You've been in Congress long enough to see Biden be the steward of just the same shit as Trump. He had policies that sucked. He's a part of a government system that's hurting Black Americans too. Why would you not say that with your chest then? Why come you couldn't speak tough then? Why the toughness waits? You wait 3 weeks. You could have went, you had 4 years. And you wait 3 weeks after the 4 years to start talking with your chest about America with the old Black people. If it wasn't so sad, y'all be funny. You don't think we see through this shit? I mean, really, it's like, you ever get that feeling, y'all? If somebody ever disrespect you, like, try to pull something on you, must be like, what? Hit it with the what? You thought I was gonna go for that? Who are you fooling with this? Who are you even talking to right now? All right. Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, my guest will be Naeem. Naeem is of an organization that's focused on real reparations. He ain't start last week. He ain't start Trump in office. They've been working on this a long time. Him and his team have a plan. They're working locally in Massachusetts. He's going to come update us on the strides they've made and what the game plan is. That's a serious conversation, not this. The Democrats, by definition, are unserious when it comes to Black upliftment, Black advancement. Black tap dancing, Black window dressing, using Black people, pretending they care about Black people, yeah, they good at that. Putting a couple Black faces in high places, long as they don't try to pull no aces, they good at that. But an actual commitment, Come on now. Come on now. Come on now. Come on now. Now, to the young people out there, man, do not become discouraged. Do not become discouraged. That might seem like a real downer to young people, man. Young person hears this like, oh man, the Democrats, they trying to fight for us. No, they not. They're not, bro. They're not. I'm not shitting on an opportunity. Trojan horse. I love you.
Coffee. Follow me.